Chapter 2650. Another time, a student who graduated from our school came back. This student was quite outstanding. He graduated as an outstanding student and was summoned by the military and the leaders of the Great Hall many times. He could be said to be a famous person in our school. He came back to school 2 years ago. Maybe he had just finished a meeting, so he put his summer coat on his arm and entered the school. I heard that when he walked to our library, he bumped into the picket. At the same time that he was discovered, the pickets also discovered him. The scene instantly became lively. Many students saw the major suddenly stride across the short green belt and run away. He was afraid of being caught by the picket. When the pickets saw him, they immediately chased after him. In the end, they didn't manage to catch him and let the major run away. Later, the major told the school leaders that he was scared out of his wits when he returned to his alma mater. His first reaction when he saw the pickets was to run away. The school leaders joked that you were not very obedient in school, but you were fine every time. This time, you were caught by the pickets, so they should teach you a lesson. They should let you follow the pickets and correct some bad habits of the students. At the same time, they should let the students know that even if you left your alma mater, as long as you come in wearing a military uniform, you still have to accept the pickets. There's nothing special about it. They're all treated the same. There's no difference. This is why there are pickets. The more Yi Jian listened, the more she felt a sense of familiarity. Especially when she heard that the major who graduated as an outstanding student strode across the green belt and ran away when he saw the pickets. Why did she feel that he was talking about Captain Xia? When they met next time, she would have to ask if it was him. Quickly go back to the dorm and change. Today, you all will gather at 7:30 to shoot in the wilderness. Hurry back to the dorm. Oh right, you don't have to mention to the students that you're in the guard room. She was afraid that if word spread, there would be negative comments about Yi Qian. The team leaders, faculty leaders, and school leaders all took good care of Yi Qian. When He Jing and Su Wen came back from their exercise, they saw Yi Qian packing her backpack. They were so happy that they rushed over. Why are you only back today? Have you settled your family matters? It didn't give you a headache, did it? Is there anything you need our help with? You don't have to be so courteous with us. Yi Qian looked at Su Wen, who was talking to him. He did not answer any of her questions. Instead, he smiled and said, I haven't seen you for 4 days and you've gotten so tanned. Looks like I have to congratulate you. As soon as she finished speaking, He Jing pursed her lips and laughed. Isn't that so? Nowadays, she doesn't even need sunscreen anymore. She wakes up at 5 o'clock sharp every day and goes to the field to practice 1 round. I sacrificed all my rest time in order to improve my fitness as soon as possible. The instructor even specially praised her during the exercise today. She was so happy that her tail was about to curl up. Of course it's beautiful. This is the first time I've been praised by an instructor. I have to keep working hard, little Jane Eyre. You have to take me with you in the future. I have to strive to pass the midterm fitness test. I can't be a burden anymore. If I continue to be a burden, even if the school doesn't chase me away, my dad will drag me away. He won't allow me to embarrass myself in school anymore. Yi Qian stuffed the water bottle into his backpack and looked at her with raised eyebrows. Uncle is here? How was it? Did you get criticized and taught a lesson? It's a pity that I wasn't there and missed the highlight. Chapter 2651. Little Jane Eyre, you really missed out on the highlights. You left in the morning and my dad came in the afternoon. Sigh, he scolded me so badly that he almost whipped me. Su Wen patted her chest with a face full of fear. Although she was tanned, she was still full of energy. I already promised that if I don't make it this semester, I'll get out of the military academy myself. I can't even get out of school, I can only study as much as I want. My dad is ruthless enough to cut off all my escape routes. If I leave the military academy, where else can I go to study? My dad made up his mind this time, so I don't dare to go against him head-on. Otherwise I'll suffer. Besides, I was scolded awake last time. I should be more proactive and not slack off anymore." Her words made Yi Qian and He Jing look at each other and smile. It was good that she thought it through. She was just afraid that if she didn't, she would be the first student in class to be expelled. When Su Wen wasn't around, He Jing quietly said to Yi Qian, "Uncle Su is quite fierce. The school probably called him and told him about Su Wen's performance. When he entered the dorm, his face was so black that it reflected the light. I was so scared that my heart was pounding. I didn't even dare to breathe. Uncle Su is a senior colonel. When he came, there were also school leaders. In front of the school leaders and teachers, he scolded Su Wen. I wanted to sneak out to save some face for Su Wen, but Uncle Su politely asked me to stay. He also said that you're her comrade and roommate. The teachers said that Su Wen usually has you and little Ye's help. Otherwise, she would have been kicked out by the school a long time ago. You stay. Don't be afraid of embarrassing her. Which of the things she did weren't embarrassing? Face isn't given by others, it's earned by oneself. If she wants to embarrass herself, then don't blame others for knowing about her shameful deeds." Recalling the scene, He Jing's heart was still pounding. I was so scared that I almost fainted. I wanted nothing more than to hug my blanket and cover my head. At that time, Su Wen was crying so much that she almost fainted. Uncle Su didn't allow me to comfort her. He even ordered her to write a letter of guarantee and put her fingerprint on it before he gave up. The whole process took half an hour from the beginning to the end. The military's swift and decisive style was vividly displayed. Yi Qian felt that Su Wen's father's actions were quite effective. The reason why Su Wen dared to sneak away was because he had a backup plan. She thought that if she really couldn't survive in the military academy, she could just withdraw and transfer to another school. In any case, with her score, she could transfer back to a higher education institution in the capital. Uncle Su had directly dropped out of school. That was not to withdraw from school, but Su Wen had directly given up on school. There was no way to take out any of her files. It was simply a dream to want to transfer to another university to study. It was simply impossible in her lifetime. Uncle Su, you've made the right choice. Now that you've cut off her escape route, she can only immerse herself in training. There's no other choice. In the following week, Yi Qian secretly observed Su Wen's performance. She had a whole new level of respect for Su Wen. She swept away her previous laziness and persevered through everything. She even knew to take the initiative to decline the help of the male students. Even if her eyes were filled with tears, she clenched her teeth and persevered. On Friday morning, there was a 5-kilometer field training. Yi Qian completely relaxed about Su Wen. Although Su Wen fell behind during the 5-kilometer field training, she clenched her teeth and persevered without giving up. Even the teachers said that if Su Wen continued like this, she wouldn't have to worry about not being able to improve her physical fitness. Yi Qian was happy for Su Wen from the bottom of her heart. On Friday afternoon, Father Fu personally came to school. He needed to pick up Yi Qian and bring him back to Nan Province to visit his deceased wife. Chapter 2652. From Monday to Friday, Father Fu wanted to go back to Nan Province alone to visit his wife, but every time he thought of his promise to his daughter, he resisted the urge. Every time he couldn't hold it in any longer, he would take out his wife's photo and chat in the hotel for hours. Sometimes, Father Fu would visit the school and greet the researchers in the school's laboratory. With his ID, Father Fu was relatively free to enter the strict school. Other than the third-year dormitory, Father Fu was not allowed to enter. He was allowed to go to places like the school library. On Thursday, he even went to watch the drill, but unfortunately, he didn't see Yi Qian. The leaders of the school didn't know about the relationship between Father Fu and Yi Qian. Father Fu didn't say anything either, but he was a comrade of Yi Qian's mother, martyr Sun Xueqing, and wanted to go back to Nan Province to visit his comrade. After discussing with the leaders of the school, the leaders asked Yi Qian if he could accompany them. On Friday, at 5 o'clock, Yi Qian and Father Fu went to the airport to return to Nan Province. In the future, I don't have to come to school to look for you. Your leader explained to me that this is the only time you can leave the barracks for the night. He also said that you are the role model of all the first-year students, so you need to take the lead. With so many people watching you, the school will have to be stricter with you. If I had known this would happen, I would have gone to your leader a few days ago to tell you that I'm going back to Nan Province to visit your mother. On the plane, Father Fu was still blaming himself for affecting Yi Qian. There were 2 days off on the weekend, and the school had a limit on the number of people allowed to go out. Only a few people in a student team could go out for half a day, so Yi Qian leaving school too often was not a good influence. This was also why the leaders of the school told Yi Qian not to tell the other students that she was locked up in the guard room. Famous people were known by too many people, so their words and actions would be noticed. The slightest mistake would be made known to everyone, so the leaders of the school had their concerns. Yi Qian carefully put away the certificate before replying to Father Fu. I won't do it this semester. This is the only time. I've never gone out before. Even if I did go out occasionally, it was usually for business. Since the start of the semester, she had indeed not gone out on the weekend. Because she knew that she was going to go abroad to participate in the competition, she stayed in school for training on the weekend. Sometimes, she would even find an instructor to practice with her. She had never gone out. Father Fu had seen Yi Qian's attendance records and knew that she didn't usually go out on weekends, so he agreed to let Yi Qian go with him. If there was, even if the father and daughter had made an agreement beforehand, even if the leaders of the hospital agreed, Father Fu himself would refuse. Study hard in school. I can see that the school leaders have high expectations for you. Although we don't live for the expectations of others, we should know from the eyes of others that we can actually go far. Take other people's expectations as a challenge to yourself, Jane Eyre. You'll find yourself facing difficulties that you once thought were impossible. Don't let down the expectations of the school leaders, which means that you're not letting down your own potential. If anything happens in the future, we can write letters to each other and see each other frequently. Father Fu smiled helplessly and shook his head. It's hard to see each other frequently. It's rare for me to have 15 days off. Once it's over, I'll have to go back to work. The next time we see each other is at least a year later. 2 or 3 years is normal. Write letters to me more often. Let me know about your situation in school so that I can understand my own daughter better. Chapter 26:53. When he met with the school leaders, he realized that his daughter was even more outstanding than he thought. She had become a popular figure in the school and a role model for the freshmen. Student Xiao Yi is not just outstanding. All of us can see how outstanding she is. She is down to earth and has worked hard to become outstanding step by step. Looking at her is like looking into a mirror, reflecting the distance between her and everyone else. There are too many people paying attention to her. Her every word and action must be more rigorous than most people. It's not that Xiao Yi lives for the eyes of others, but it's because she can do better and be more outstanding. The words of the school leaders still lingered in his ears. Father Fu looked at his bright-eyed daughter and couldn't help but feel proud. This was his and Hong Mei's daughter. She was so outstanding that he was extremely surprised and proud of her. After having a daughter, he realized that he was no longer an exception. Knowing that his daughter was outstanding, he had to admit that he was very happy. Being outstanding was always better than being mediocre. He couldn't help but think that way. However, behind his happiness, Father Fu was faintly worried. Receiving too much attention wasn't a good thing sometimes. Yi Qian liked to listen to Father Fu's lecture because it was what she looked forward to the most. Hearing this, she nodded seriously with a deep smile in her eyes. She humbly replied, "Dad, don't worry. I've always known that I live for myself and work hard for myself. The reason others have expectations for you is because you can do even better. I can work hard to climb up, but even if one day I don't climb that high and don't stand on the highest peak, I won't be depressed because of it." That was exactly what Mr. Fu wanted Yi Jian to say. Hearing her words, the smile in his eyes deepened. "I'm relieved that you think that way. There are many outstanding people who are stuck at a dead end. In the end, because of a failure, they did not receive the praise of others or see the disappointment in others' eyes. What I'm worried about is that you're receiving so much attention at such a young age. If you disappoint people one day, I'm afraid that you won't be able to get over it. Now that I know that you understand, I'm really relieved." Yi Qian did not think that her father Fu was worried that she would be too stressed out and overthink things. At the same time, warmth flowed through her heart, and at the same time, she also knew how heavy a father's love was. Perhaps only parents would be so concerned about their children. He didn't want to be rich and powerful, he only wanted to live a peaceful life with many children and grandchildren. Yi Qian gently rested her head on Father Fu's broad, wall-like shoulder that could shield her from the wind and rain. She softly said, "No, there will never be such a day. For the people I love, for the people who love me, I will definitely protect my original heart. Just like before, I will never change." It was said that a daughter was her parents' intimate little jacket. Father Fu truly understood this at this moment. He lifted his hand and gently hugged Yi Qian's shoulder. He said kindly, "If you're outstanding, I'm proud of you. If you're mediocre, I'm also happy to have you. Jane Eyre, no matter what kind of person you become in the future, you will always be the pride of your parents. Your birth is the greatest pride of your mother and I." One day, when luxury truly existed, Father Fu no longer wished for anything else. He only wished that his only daughter could live a safe and sound life. He wished that she could return safely from every mission. The plane landed in Nan Province. Yi Qian immediately calculated the time and called Principal Chen, who had already returned to the dormitory to rest. Chapter 2654. Principal Chen of the sniper base had indeed just returned to his dormitory, but he was not idle. A few instructors came over to ask him a few questions. When the phone rang, Principal Chen was talking to a few instructors. Principal Chen did not even need to look at the caller ID to know who was calling. He picked up the phone with some surprise and asked with a smile, "Little Yi, you went out today?" Principal Chen did not have any relatives. Due to his identity, he had cut off all contact with his former comrade. After Lu Tuan retired from the army, he only contacted him during the day. It was the same for Political Commissar Yen. It was late at night and it was a Friday night call. Principal Chen guessed that it was Yi Qian. Yi Qian could only contact Principal Chen when he was out. If he did not go out, he would be isolated from the rest of the world. Yi Qian did not even say goodbye to Principal Chen during the May Day holiday, and Principal Chen understood. Hearing the familiar voice, Yi Qian's eyebrows lit up. "Uncle Chen, I'll come over on Saturday night. I have a huge surprise for you." "You're in Nan Province now?" Her light and cheerful voice infected Principal Chen. In the eyes of the instructors at the sniper base, Principal Chen laughed heartily. "Sounds like it's a happy occasion." "Of course, I already told you that it's a huge surprise. Of course it's a happy occasion. Do you have anything else to do on Saturday night? If not, your time on Saturday night and weekend mornings may be taken up by me." "What can I do? What time will I come over on Saturday? Do you need me to send a car to pick you up?" Principal Chen was very happy to see Yi Qian. Even the wrinkles on his face, which had been hardened by the vicissitudes of life, were smiling. Father Fu watched as Yi Qian was in high spirits talking on the phone with Principal Chen, who had helped her a lot. He was like a father to her, and his eyes were filled with a kind smile the whole time. His daughter was a child who knew how to be grateful. Such a child was always kind and responsible. After talking about the time and chatting for a while, Yi Qian hung up the phone. His father would meet Uncle Chen tomorrow. The joy in Yi Qian's heart washed away the sadness of visiting martyr son Xueqing at the Martyrs' Park tomorrow. Father Fu was also happy to see his daughter happy. On Saturday morning, around 5 a.m., Yi Qian and Father Fu went to the flower shop that was already open for business. When Yi Qian took out 5 bouquets of white chrysanthemums, Father Fu said in a low and hoarse voice, "Take some yellow chrysanthemums. Your mother loves yellow chrysanthemums the most. Also, take a bouquet of red roses. Once, your mother asked me when I could give her a bouquet of red roses that Westerners love." Yi Qian's heart trembled when he heard this. It was not over yet, but Papa was already heartbroken. They bought 4 bouquets of white chrysanthemums. 2 bouquets were placed in front of the memorial and 2 bouquets were placed in front of Uncle Jen's grave. Then, they bought a bouquet of yellow chrysanthemums and a bouquet of red roses. Yi Qian also bought a bouquet of carnations. These were flowers that she wanted to give to her mother. With 7 bouquets of flowers, the father and daughter, who were both wearing military uniforms, headed to the Martyrs' Cemetery. At around 6 a.m., the father and daughter each placed a bouquet of white chrysanthemums in front of the Martyrs' Cemetery's monument. The monument was engraved with the words, "Eternal Glory to the Martyrs of the Revolution." After placing the 2 bouquets of white chrysanthemums, the father and daughter raised their hands at the same time and saluted towards the monument. The people who were buried here were all martyrs who had sacrificed for the country. The father and daughter saluted in their military uniforms to show their respect for the martyrs. "Let's go." Father Fu put down his arms and walked around the monument with the bouquets of white chrysanthemums and Yi Qian in his hands. Chapter 26:55. The southern province was a place of revolution. The Martyrs' Cemetery was quite grand. Walking up the mountain, one could see the martyrs who had sacrificed themselves for the country. Uncle Jen was buried in the newly built cemetery. In the black and white photo, Uncle Jen was wearing an old-fashioned military uniform and a military cap. He had a faint smile on his face as he looked over with a determined gaze. Yi Qian knelt down and looked at the kind-looking Uncle Jen in the photo. She used all her strength to kowtow, and the sound of her kowtowing could be heard on the limestone floor. In this life, if not for Uncle Jen's guidance, which pulled Yi Qian out of the quagmire of revenge, Yi Qian would not be the successful Yi Qian she was today. Perhaps she would still be living well, but she would definitely be covered in shadows, living a gray life tormented by hatred. It was because of Uncle Jen that Yi Qian was able to walk on a broad path and become who she was today. It was also because of Yi Qian that the father and daughter could reunite. She kowtowed 3 times to the old man who was in eternal slumber. "Grandpa, little Yi is here to see you. Little Ye's father is here too. Grandpa, little Yi has found her father. I'm here with her father to see you." As soon as she opened her mouth, she choked on her words. Father Fu knelt down as well and kowtowed to the old man who had taken care of his daughter in every possible way. "Uncle, I'm Jane Eyre's father and Hongmei's husband. It's all thanks to your care that Jane Eyre is who she is today. Thank you, Uncle. You're the benefactor of the Fu family. You're the one who gave us hope. Without you, Jane Eyre wouldn't be who she is today, and I wouldn't have reunited with her. Thank you, Uncle." Father Fu was meeting Uncle Jen for the first time, so he was very respectful. He kowtowed heavily with every sentence he spoke. The old man was no longer in this world, so he had no other way to show his filial piety. He could only kowtow to express his gratitude from the bottom of his heart. After the father and daughter finished kowtowing, they stood up and bowed deeply in front of Uncle Jen. "Grandpa, I'm going to visit Mom with Dad. Little Yi will come to visit you next time." Yi Qian looked at the old man in the photo. The old man was looking at her with a smile. Just like every time she left the village, The old man always straightened his back and looked at her kindly and encouragingly as she left the village step by step. "Goodbye, uncle. Next time, Junior will bring my daughter to visit you." Filled with gratitude, Father Fu thanked Uncle Jen again before he left with Yi Qian. After paying their respects to Uncle Jen, Yi Qian and Father Fu's hearts were heavy. As they walked up the long stone stairs, Yi Qian started to talk about Uncle Jen's life story. He wanted to let Father Fu know more about Uncle General. Father Fu listened to her for a long time. A hint of doubt flitted across his mind. He asked, "You only got together with your parents in junior high. What about before that? Who adopted you before you were 14? Since Dad has returned to the southern province, after I visit Principal Chun, Dad will go and thank the family who adopted you." When he asked this question, Yi Qian's expression stiffened. That's right. She kept mentioning Uncle Jen, Principal Chun, Platoon Leader Liu, Political Commissar Yen, and Captain Xia in the army. She started from junior high and did not mention anything before she was 14. She originally planned to tell Father Fu more secrets after visiting her mother. However, Father Fu had been immersed in his reunion with her and the grief of her mother's death. He did not ask about her life before she was 14. Chapter 2656. Now that he suddenly asked, Yi Qian's expression was a little stiff, but her psychological quality was good. In a flash, she covered up the strangeness and smiled faintly. "The family that adopted me took the pension that my mother left for me. This family is no longer around, so Dad, you don't have to thank them." She didn't want to tell Father Fu about what happened before she was 14 years old. If she could hide it, she wanted to keep hiding it. In fact, it was a little unrealistic. Father Fu could find out about these things by investigating, so she also needed to mention it. But Yi Qian looked up at the high mountain where her mother was buried. The cypress trees were straight like guards. At least wait until after visiting her mother and her father calmed down. One thing after another, there had to be a buffer. How could she reveal everything at once? Although she covered up the strangeness quickly, Father Fu still saw a clue. Just like that, Father Fu's heart fiercely twitched in pain. His daughter was avoiding the past again. It must be because her life was too hard, and she didn't want to talk about it and make him sad. Her mother's matter was like this. She was afraid that her father would be sad, so she carefully hid it. Father Fu, who felt that he owed Yi Qian too much in his heart, felt like there was a huge rock pressing on his chest, making him unable to breathe. His daughter was too sensible. Sensible enough to let her take care of him, her father. Father Fu, who was short of breath, suppressed his tumbling emotions and took a deep breath. He cooperated with Yi Qian and pretended that nothing had happened. He smiled gently and said, "That's a pity. Next time, if there's a chance, Dad will go and thank them." At this time, Father Fu would never have thought that the family that adopted Yi Qian tortured his daughter in every possible way. She almost died several times. He didn't know if this family or the murderer that pushed his wife's sacrifice, separating him from the person he loved the most. In front of them was the tombstone of martyr Sun Xueqing. As it had just passed the Qingming festival, there was still a withered wreath placed in front of the tombstone. This was a ceremony organized by the Southern Province troops every year to commemorate the martyrs. Every martyr's tombstone had a wreath and fresh flowers in front of it. Yi Qian pointed in the direction of martyr Sun Xueqing's tombstone and said softly to Father Fu, "Father, in front, to the left, the second one in the second row. Mother is buried there." After she finished speaking, Father Fu's gaze had already landed on her. Early in the morning, there was still a faint mist lingering on the mountain of the cemetery of martyrs. The sunlight shone softly through the mist, illuminating the rows of red pentagrams in front of the tombstones. Father Fu's gaze pierced through the mist and fell on the place where his deceased wife rested. "Hongmei," he murmured softly. Yi Qian saw him stumbling forward. Before he could see his mother, his father's soul had already been shattered. The greatest sorrow was nothing more than a dead heart, nothing more than all the tears that were stuck in the heart, unable to flow out no matter how much they flowed. If the heart was dead, how could there be tears? She had already gone with him, so how could there be tears? After more than 20 years, Fu Yuxing finally saw the only woman he had ever loved in his life, the only wife he had ever loved. He stumbled a few times and looked like he was about to fall. Yi Qian, who was holding a carnation in her hand, chased after him and supported Father Fu's arm with one hand. "Father, slow down, don't fall." Her nasal voice was heavy, and it was obvious that she was about to cry. "Good girl, don't support me. I'll walk over to see your mother myself." This time, Father Fu firmly withdrew his hand. He wanted to walk over to see his wife himself. Even if he fell, he wanted to crawl over to see his wife. Chapter 26:57. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 step. He got closer and closer. Through the mist and sunlight, Fu Yuxing finally found the wife he had been searching for more than 20 years. It was not a living wife, but a cold tombstone. Fu Yuxing approached his late wife's grave and finally saw his wife. He saw the black and white photo of his late wife. He saw the smile that had not faded. Her voice and appearance were still there, but they were worlds apart. Thump! Meeting her after more than 20 years made Fu Yuxing kneel down. His knees hit the bluestone hard. Even though it was painful, it was not as painful as the pain in his heart. "The tomb of the martyr's son Xueqing," Fu Yuxing murmured softly. It turned out that his late wife's name was not Hong Mei. Like his comrades, she had her own code name. On their marriage applications, their spouses' names were all Hong Mei. Hong Mei stood proudly in the snow. It turned out that this was his late wife's real name. It took him more than 20 years to even know his late wife's real name. Hong Mei. "Xueqing, Yuxing is here. Yuxing is here to see you. Xueqing, your Yuxing is here to see you." This kneeling took all of the strength of this unyielding man. With this kneeling, he broke his obsession of more than 20 years. His wife, his lover. She had waited her whole life for his return. Until her death, she had not waited for the man named Fu Yuxing to marry her. His calloused fingers that were no longer young gently caressed the photo of the martyr's son Xueqing. In the photo, the martyr's son Xueqing was smiling like a flower. She had always maintained the beauty of a young woman in her 20s. The corners of her mouth were slightly curved, and there was a hazy and gentle smile. Fu Yuxing loved the smile on her face. It was so beautiful that it made people's hearts feel sweet. His mind was always filled with the smile of his wife when she was young. Standing among the green mountains and clear waters, under the blue sky and white clouds, she was wearing a loose-fitting military uniform. Her slim waist was tied with a dark brown belt, and she wore an old-fashioned military cap. Her short hair was tied up on both sides with rubber bands. She waved at him as she walked. "Yuxing, Yuxing. Fu Yuxing, I'm here," she said she was here. Every time he turned back to look. No, his wife, his lover was not there. There was only her laughter in his ears. It was crisp like the chirping of birds in the forest in the morning, echoing in his ears, "Yuxing, Yuxing, I'm here. I'm here." She said she was here, but he couldn't find her. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't find her. He lost her, Fu Yuxing, Xueqing, 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 Xueqing. Xueqing, 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 and Xueqing, Xueqing, Xueqing. In his dreams, Fu Yuxing had a recurring dream where his wife was calling out Yuxing behind him. Whenever he turned around, all he could hear was her laughter. He was surrounded by a thick fog. No matter how hard he searched, no matter how hard he ran, he could not hear her voice. It sounded like she was right next to his ear, but it also sounded like she was far away. No matter how hard he searched, he could not find his wife. "Hong Mei, I've missed you for more than 20 years. I've thought and thought that you must hate me for going missing, hate me for leaving without a word, hate me for betraying you. So, you've been avoiding me, unwilling to see me. Chapter 26:58. Hugging the cold tombstone, Fu Yuxing's wrinkled face, which was no longer young, gently pressed against it. It seemed that this was the only way to hold his wife in his arms. His low and shallow voice slowly drifted over. It was filled with sorrow and longing, and it blew into the distance along with the wind. I thought about it and thought about it every day. I thought about how I would greet you when I found you one day. Would I have the courage to open my mouth? I thought about whether you had already forgotten about that man called Fu Yuxing. Did you hate him so much that you couldn't wait to cut him into pieces to vent the hatred in your heart? I'm waiting. I've always been waiting. No matter how you treat me, I won't fight back. I'll gladly endure it. Hong Mei. Xueqing, my wife. Come over and hit me, scold me. A soldier knelt in front of his wife's grave, hugging the cold tombstone. That year, for the country, for the responsibility he shouldered, in order to prove his innocence, he maintained a calm head in the face of the military's investigation for more than a year, but because of this, he let down his lover. At this moment, the Major General who had made great contributions to the country's military strength hugged his late wife's tombstone. All of his sorrow, all of his grievances, and all of his longing for more than 20 years were released at this moment. The sorrow was so strong that even the sun couldn't dispel it. It was so strong that even the morning breeze resonated with it. The tall and mighty soldier who had faced the difficulties and disdain of other countries when he had gone abroad to study could pat his chest and say that he had lived with a clear conscience for more than 20 years. However, facing the photo of his late wife and hugging the cold tombstone, he knew that the only person he had let down in his life was his wife. He had lived with a clear conscience for more than 20 years. He had lived with a clear conscience for more than 20 years. Yi Qian, who was kneeling in front of the tombstone, saw her father kneeling and hugging her mother's tombstone. His voice was hoarse as he spoke. Tears of blood could not express the sorrow in the depths of her father's heart, nor could he express his longing for her mother. Although her mother had passed away, her father had finally found her. He had finally fulfilled her father's wish of more than 20 years. He had fulfilled her father's obsession for more than 20 years. He didn't disturb her. At this time, he couldn't disturb her, let alone persuade her. After 20 years of persistence, he only saw a cold tombstone. The hope in his heart suddenly collapsed. Every year, every minute, and every second of his longing shattered at this moment. Her father needed to clean up all the broken sadness and talk to her mother more. Even if he had to hug the cold tombstone, it was better than waiting hopelessly. Mom, did you hear that? You must have heard it. Your daughter has brought father here to see you. Your daughter finally knows that father didn't abandon you. It was fate that made you and father separated by life and death. Mom, don't worry. I will definitely find out who caused your death. One day, I will tell you who caused you to be separated from Dad and me, and caused our family to be reunited after more than 20 years. Listen to Dad. You must listen carefully. Dad really loves you. He has not forgotten you, nor has he abandoned you. He has loved you deeply for more than 20 years. Father Fu knelt for a long time, and Yi Qian also knelt for a long time. Chapter 26:59. The bright and beautiful sunlight slowly became hot, and the morning mist finally dispersed. The wind blew over the mountain and dried the tears on Yi Qian's face. She looked at her father, who was still hugging her mother's tombstone, and had endless things to say. The birds leaped lightly from the pine trees that were like guardians guarding the martyrs' cemetery. Small shadows of swords flitted across the sky, leaving behind a string of crisp chirps that entered Papa's low and shallow words. After kneeling for a long time and talking for a long time, Father Fu finally let go of the tombstone. At this moment, the tombstone was not cold, but had Father Fu's body temperature. It was warm, like the warmth in the black and white photo of martyr son Xueqing. You must be annoyed after talking so much. I can't help it, Hongmei. I have too much to say to you. You have to be more tolerant of me like before. I can't come to see you often, and I can't come to chat with you often. Every time I come, I'll talk to you for a long time. It's too lonely and cold for you to sleep here alone. I have to talk to you more for the rest of my life. Our daughter, Jane Eyre, can't come to talk to you often either. You have to be more tolerant. Hongmei, although you left us, we still need you to be more tolerant of us. Do you think I'm annoying? You used to say that I was noisy and you kicked me when you were annoyed. Every time you kicked me, you would ask me if it hurt. I would laugh and tell you that it didn't hurt. To be honest, it really did hurt. You were strong. Every time you kicked me, you would kick my calf. Even though I was wearing a pair of shoes, it still hurt a weak scholar like me. Now I want you to kick me a few more times. Saying that I was annoying has become an extravagant wish. Father Fu, who had let go, did not get up immediately. Instead, he used his hands to wipe the photo of his deceased wife, and then slowly and carefully wiped the tombstone. It's all stained with dust. You're a clean freak. How can you stand it? I have to clean it for you. Otherwise, you'll scold me for not being hygienic. Actually, I've always paid attention to hygiene. It's just that you love cleanliness and didn't realize it. Father Fu cleaned it very well. Even the words, Martyr Sun Xueqing's tomb, and the words, when was she born and when was she sacrificed, were wiped clean with his fingers. After everything was done, Father Fu looked at Yi Qian, who was still kneeling. He smiled at his daughter and said to his late wife, Hongmei, look at your silly daughter. She knelt with me for as long as I knelt. Even if I have to kneel for a few days and nights, that's what I should do. But our silly daughter couldn't bear to leave me, her father, and insisted on accompanying her. This child is smart but also honest. Isn't he like you? Once you've made up your mind, you'll keep walking. No matter who calls you, you won't waver. Father Fu spoke to his late wife as if they were chatting. He smiled and waved at Yi Qian. Come, Jane Eyre. Let's sit here. You sit on your mother's side and I'll sit here. We'll chat with your mother on either side. After kneeling for so long, Yi Qian's knees still hurt when she got up. But under Father Fu's gaze, she smiled and sat on his side. From morning to noon and from noon to afternoon, Father Fu talked for a while and Yi Qian talked for a while. They talked about many things and Yi Qian also listened to many past events. Chapter 2660. She knew how her parents had met and how they had fallen in love. She also knew that her mother had dragged a male soldier to the shooting range because he kept provoking her. She had used 10 guns and 100 bullets to shock the male soldier. After that, he had never dared to say things like, female soldiers are not good enough. She also knew that her mother had looked gentle when she was young, but in fact, she had a very stubborn personality. She knew that she did not pass the cultural test, but every day after training, she would use a flashlight to study until late at night. In the end, she ranked first in the team during the final exam. That day, the father and daughter cried and laughed for a while. They spent 10 hours with the most important person in their lives, the martyr Sun Xueqing, who was no longer alive. When they came down from the mountain, it was already sunset. Walking down the long ladder, Fu Yusheng looked back again. He seemed to see a slender figure sitting at the top of the stone ladder, waving at him. Fu Yusheng squinted slightly. When he wanted to look again, he only saw green cypresses and birds flying by. The slender figure in his eyes did not exist. If there really was a soul, he believed that the slender figure he had just seen was his late wife sending him and his daughter off with her eyes. Looking at the tall ladder, Father Fu smiled slightly. Goodbye, Hongmei. I'll see you again next time. After saying goodbye in his heart, Father Fu did not look back. He walked out of the cemetery of martyrs with Yi Qian. His past with his wife had come to an end. Next, he would take good care of their only daughter, with the love that his late wife had for her daughter. Yi Qian could feel the change in Father Fu. The most obvious change was that his steps were much lighter. This was great. Really, really great. At around 6:30 p.m., the father and daughter took a taxi to the suburbs. As soon as Yi Qian got out of the car, he heard a familiar voice from the side of the road. Girl Yi, it was Principal Chen's voice. Father Fu, who was sitting in front, was paying the fare and was about to get out of the car later. When he pushed open the door and got out, a sharp gaze swept over him. He saw a middle-aged man who was about the same age as him, looking at him with a scrutinizing gaze. Principal Chen was very, very shocked because he saw Yi Qian's features in this major general's face. He actually saw Yi Qian's shadow. Yi Qian's features were very similar to this major general's. Then he heard Yi Qian say to the middle-aged man, "Dad, Uncle Chen is here to pick us up." "Dad? Dad? Dad?" Yi Qian, who did not expect Principal Chen to personally come to the intersection to pick them up, was very happy. He cheerfully said to Father Fu, "Dad, Uncle Chen is here to pick us up." Then he ran towards Principal Chen like a little bird. Uncle Chen, I found my dad." "Look, I brought my dad to see you." "Dad? Biological dad?" It was so shocking that even this world-class sniper had a look of great surprise on his face. Principal Chen could not believe what he had just heard. He asked again, "Biological dad?" Yi Qian pursed his lips and smiled. He nodded vigorously. Yes, yes, yes. Biological dad. We've done a DNA test. He's my biological dad. Uncle Chen, this is the huge surprise I have for you. Girl Yi, what you brought to Uncle Chen is not a surprise, but a shock. Principal Chen could not help but laugh. His surprise had accidentally turned into a shock, and he was really scared. Biological dad. Girl Yi had actually found her biological dad. Chapter 2661. Principal Chen was extremely shocked. His brain couldn't react for a moment. Even the DNA was tested. Naturally, there was no need to suspect anything. It was 100% certain that he was Yi Yata's father. Yi Yata. How did she find her biological father? There are many things that I can't explain clearly over the phone. I rushed back on the 1st of May to talk to you. Who knew that I would have to leave the southern province at the last minute? I'm sorry, Uncle Chen. I didn't tell you immediately. Yi Qian saw Principal Chen's rare shock and felt a little uneasy. It was such an important matter, but she didn't tell Uncle Chen immediately because of various scruples. She felt guilty towards Uncle Chen. Before she found her grandfather and father, Uncle Chen had always been her closest family. She should tell Uncle Chen immediately if anything happened. Moreover, she said last time that she would tell him immediately if anything happened in the future. In the end, she still didn't do it. Principal Chen understood Yi Qian. When she said, "I'm sorry," he knew that Yi Qian felt guilty towards him. He raised his hand and adjusted her collar with a smile. He sighed and said, "There's no need to apologize to Uncle Chen. You've always been reliable. You've always done things steadily. You don't dare to make a single mistake. How could Uncle Chen not know why you didn't tell me immediately? It's probably because of various scruples. I definitely wouldn't have spread the news until the final confirmation and father and daughter reunite. Moreover, there was the martyr son Xueqing in the middle. Yi Yatu had always thought that it was her biological father who abandoned her mother. Abandoning one's wife and daughter was extremely hurtful to Yi Yatu. He could say with certainty that even if Yi Yatu knew who her biological father was, she wouldn't easily meet him. She had a knot in her heart. She had to cut it out and let out the blood that rotted in her heart before she could accept her biological father. The Yi girl in front of him had eyebrows as clear as a breeze and eyes as bright as the moon. There wasn't the slightest bit of gloominess on her face. It was obvious that everything had been settled. Only then did she feel relieved and happily came to report the good news to him. This silly girl. How could it be that she didn't tell him immediately? She was clearly shouldering the burden alone so that he wouldn't worry. There must be a reason why you didn't tell me. Uncle Chen doesn't need your sorry. Uncle Chen just wants you to be fine. Principal Chen adjusted Yi Qian's collar. Not bad, clean and valiant. Just like her biological father, she was an indomitable soldier. When Yi Qian heard this, he was so moved that tears welled up in his eyes. Her closest relatives could always understand her. No matter how wrong she was, they would always choose to forgive her. She didn't tell Uncle Chen immediately because she had a lot of concerns in her heart. She was afraid that her biological father wouldn't acknowledge her. She was afraid that even though she knew that her biological father didn't abandon her mother on purpose, she still couldn't accept him. She was even more afraid that even though they were biological father and daughter, they were no different than strangers when standing in front of each other. In her previous life, she had been through too many hardships, so much so that she had developed a character where she would not easily reveal anything unless she was absolutely certain. Even though she had thought of changing this character in this life, she still chose to temporarily hide it when something big was about to happen. Moreover, at that time, if Captain Xia hadn't accompanied her to face it, it was very likely that she wouldn't have taken the step to acknowledge her biological father. She would have stubbornly locked herself in her own world and stubbornly believed that her father had abandoned his wife and daughter on purpose. Chapter 2662. And now everything had cleared up. She had even brought her father to visit Uncle Jen, and then brought her father to visit her mother. She had heard many things about her father and mother, and deeply understood how much her father loved her mother. Everything was so beautiful that she couldn't help but want to give this surprise to her other closest relative, Uncle Chen. She wanted to make him happy, and she wanted him to feel more assured about her. Uncle Chen, thank you. Yi Qian raised her head and looked at Principal Chen, who had appeared in her world like a towering mountain and sheltered her from the wind and rain. He was like a father figure to her, and the smile in her eyes grew brighter. Principal Chen looked kindly at the girl who he had watched grow up and smiled. Do you still need to be so polite with Uncle Chen? If you're happy, Uncle Chen will be happy. Don't just talk to me. Let your father stand to the side and wait. Don't let your father wait too long. Introduce him to Uncle Chen. Father Fu, who was standing to the side, felt happy, but also slightly bitter. Before he had appeared, Principal Chen had taken over the position of father and sheltered his daughter from the wind and rain. He had held his daughter's hand as she grew up, and he was destined to miss his daughter's growth. Seeing that Yi Qian and Principal Chen had finished talking, Father Fu didn't wait for Principal Chen to walk over. He immediately went up to him and stretched out his hands at the same time with Yi Qian in the middle. The two officials met harmoniously. Father Fu came with great sincerity. Even though he was a major general, he was very respectful to Principal Chen. Principal Chen couldn't help but nod in his heart. Yi Qian was a child taught by his uncle, who shared the same roots as him. They could accept that the weak girl had grown into a big tree that could withstand the wind and rain. They could accept that the girl had gone through the wind and rain and had trimmed off the unnecessary twigs, but they definitely couldn't accept that someone would hurt the child they had raised. To Principal Chen, Yi Qian was like his own daughter. Seeing Father Fu's elegant yet cold temperament, Principal Chen already had a good impression of Father Fu. Along the way, Principal Chen was already happy for Yi Qian. You're too kind. Little Yi is a child who deserves our kindness. She's outstanding and kind. Uncle and I don't have to worry too much because we know that little Yi has a sense of propriety and won't do anything bad. In the car, Principal Chen still talked about Yi Qian's situation the most. He knew that Yi Qian was someone who only reported good news and not bad news. He guessed that Yi Qian must not have told Father Fu about the hardships he had suffered in the Yi family, so Principal Chen did not mention it. Father Fu listened very attentively. These were all Yi Qian's past It made him understand what kind of life his daughter had lived. Was it hard? Was it difficult? Was it sweet? Was it sweet? He really wanted to hear more. Only by hearing more would he be able to understand his daughter better. Principal Chen, who could read Father Fu's mind, sighed softly in his heart. He then nodded to himself. Little Ye's biological father was very reliable. From his expression, it could be seen that he valued little Ye very much. That was the best. With her biological father taking care of her, he felt even more assured. She also suffered a lot. Back then, she was still young and we wanted to train her. We would often give her some difficult problems that were impossible to solve at her age. Uncle and I secretly told her that as long as she dared to accept the challenge, we would train her well based on her courage. Chapter 2663. Who would have thought that as our problems got harder and harder, little Ye could handle them better? Not only could she handle them, but she could also complete them. This was an eye-opener for Uncle and me, and we were even more determined to train her well. That was why we came up with the 4-year plan and the special training in the snow, forest, and desert. Major General Fu, your daughter has suffered a lot to get to where she is today. Principal Chen let out a long sigh. Little Ye was the kind of person who only reported the good news and not the bad news, but he had to tell Major General Fu that his daughter did not get to where she was today because of her talent, but because of her hard work. He also had to let Major General Fu know that little Ye was a child who had suffered a lot. Principal Chen did not want Yi Qian to only report the good news and not the bad news to Father Fu. He had to let Father Fu know what he needed to know. This was the only way he could treat little Yi better in the future. Yi Qian did not interrupt the whole time, because after they got into the car, Father Fu said, "Jane Eyre, you sit in the front. I want to talk to Principal Chen for a while." Principal Chen said, "Your father is right. You can't interrupt when the adults are talking." One was her biological father, and the other was Principal Chen, who was like a father to her. The two fathers had established a tacit understanding within 3 minutes of meeting each other. Yi Qian was happy. However, she was also quite afraid. She was afraid that Principal Chen would tell Father Fu everything about her past and make Father Fu, who had been sitting in front of her mother's grave the whole day, sad again. Along the way, Yi Qian's heart was in a mess. Her heart was in a bumpy ride, and she did not feel at ease for even a second. She listened to Principal Chen talk about her past training, the dangers she had encountered during the training, and how he and Uncle Jen had deliberately increased the difficulty to see if she could complete it. The corners of her mouth curled up slightly. Without the harsh training in the past, how could he have achieved today's results? It was only a half-hour drive from the intersection to the sniper base. The car drove straight into the base. Yi Qian jumped out of the car first and opened the door for his two fathers. At the same time, he said with a smile, "We're finally out of the car. I was really worried that I would get a heart attack if we continued chatting." "What? Are you afraid that Uncle Chen will speak ill of you?" After getting out of the car, Principal Chen laughed heartily and chatted with Father Fu. He was a knowledgeable major general with his own opinions. What was even rarer was that he loved Yi Qian to the bone. Yi Qian blinked and playfully said, "I'm not afraid of you saying bad things about me. I'm just afraid that you'll say that I'm insensible and annoy you." "Clever. Go to the cafeteria and bring the hot food here. After dinner, I want to have a good talk with your father about you." Principal Chen shook his head with a smile, but the relief in his eyes deepened. After finding her biological father, Yi Qian's eyes became even brighter. Even her smile was exceptionally joyful. He still wanted to ask her how she found her biological father and how she could let go of the past and accept him. There were too many things that he did not understand. Although he had a good time chatting with Major General Fu, he still wanted to understand more. At that moment, Yi Qian remembered that she had not told Uncle Chen about another important matter. She still needed Principal Chen to keep her relationship with Captain Xia a secret. She could not tell Father Fu for the time being. After Father Fu washed his hands before dinner, Yi Qian took the opportunity to say, "Uncle Chen, I still need you to help me keep my relationship with Captain Xia a secret for the time being. My father doesn't want me to fall in love so early. Also, he thinks that I have a crush on Captain Xia." At this point, Yi Qian could not help but laugh. Chapter 2664. Principal Chen couldn't help but laugh. How could there be such a misunderstanding? I don't know either. After my dad met Captain Xia, he thought so. I don't know how he could tell that I have a crush on Captain Xia. Speaking of crush, it should be Captain Xia who has a crush on me. Yi Qian lifted her chin slightly, revealing a rare ladylike demeanor. You've always known that it was Captain Xia who pursued me. Principal Chen agreed. It was true that Captain Xia had a crush on Yi Qian. He nodded and smiled. I can hide it from you. I think you're enjoying it too. It's just that Captain Xia has to suffer. It's not suffering. My dad has a good impression of him. He's your future son-in-law. Didn't you test him for a long time before you agreed to let me be with Captain Xia? The smile on Yi Qian's face became deeper and brighter. I'm indeed a little young. I can only trouble Captain Xia to wait a little longer. It's good that you two know what you're doing. But Yi Qian, you can't wrong Captain Xia who treats you wholeheartedly. All these years, Uncle Chen has seen it all. He really dotes on you and puts you first in everything. You have to be the same. You can't just take everything. You have to know how to give. If you take too much and only ask the other party to give, you'll stand still. This kind of relationship won't go far. It's fated to separate after a long time. Principal Chen had high hopes for Xia Jinyuan, so he reminded Yi Qian from time to prevent her from spoiling a good marriage. Yi Qian nodded repeatedly. How could she bear to let her Captain Xia be wronged? If she couldn't get her dad's approval immediately, she would definitely comfort him in private and let him know her decision. Since she loved him, she shouldn't hold back. She didn't want to have regrets in her life. You and Captain Xia are one thing, but what about your mother? How are you going to tell her? He was referring to the fact that Sun Xueqing had sacrificed herself as a martyr. The smile on Yi Qian's face faded at a speed visible to the naked eye. He lowered his eyes and said softly, "Today, I took Dad to visit Uncle Chen and Mom. From early morning until 4 or 5 in the afternoon, Dad kept talking to Mom's tombstone. I didn't tell Uncle Chen that Mom's sacrifice had a hidden story." "Girl, you can't hide these things. Why do you always like to hide them?" Principal Chen was a little angry. "Don't tell me you want to hide it from your father forever? How can this matter be concealed? You've already brought your father to see your mother. It can be seen that you've completely accepted your father in your heart and forgiven him for leaving your mother back then. Since things have come to this point, why are you still hiding it? If you hide too much, you'll be the one tired in the end. Do you understand?" Principal Chen, who was secretly angry, felt his heart ache again. "You little girl, you're just afraid that your loved ones will be sad. You'd rather bear it alone than say it out loud. This won't do. You feel sorry for us, but we also feel sorry for you. And your father feels even more sorry for you. This matter has to be told tonight. It can't be delayed any longer. Your father has the right to know the truth. And you, girl Yi, you really don't have the right to hide it from your father." Principal Chen made his decision immediately. He didn't give Yi Qian a chance to protest. This wasn't a small matter. It was a big matter. How could he hide it? Yi Qian, whose face was a little pale, nodded gently. "Okay, tonight. I'll tell you. Dad has the right to know the truth, and I have no right to hide it. Uncle Chen, you're right. I can't hide it anymore." She could hide it now, but she couldn't hide it forever. Chapter 2665. When Principal Chen saw Yi Qian's face turn pale, he couldn't bear to see her like this. However, he couldn't help her hide the truth, just because he couldn't bear to see her like this. What was there to hide? Although Martyr Sun Xueqing had married someone else, she was still closest to Major General Fu Yusheng. Don't worry too much. Tell him about your mother's remarriage, and about your father. Since you've found your biological father, you can tell him everything about you one by one. When Uncle Chen mentioned Martyr Sun Xueqing's remarriage, Yi Qian's fingers trembled slightly. This was also something she didn't want to talk about. If she said it, she was still afraid that her father would be sad. How could such a small movement escape the sharp eyes of this world-class sniper? Seeing this, Principal Chen's heart became heavier. Little girl Yi, oh little girl Yi, you're always thinking of others. You'd rather bear the burden than let the people who were good to you worry about you. You're really stubborn. There are some things that you don't think are easy to say, but that's because you haven't tried. Little girl Yi, you have to remember that the people closest to you in this world will always be the people who are related to you by blood. No matter what you do or say, your father will not blame you for it. Uncle Chen dares to guarantee that your father is definitely the family member who is most tolerant of you. Major General Fu hasn't done anything for you yet, because you haven't given him a chance to do anything for you. Uncle Chen believes that with Major General Fu's love for you, he will definitely listen to you and dote on you in the future. He will definitely do much more for you than Uncle Chen. After all, he is your biological father and your closest family member. You can't cut him off because he is related by blood. So, you can't hide your matters from your father. Little girl Yi, your father is the person closest to you, and Captain Xia is the lover of your life. You can hide your matters from anyone else, but you can't hide them from the two of them. This is Uncle Chen's advice to you. You must remember it. Yi Qian respected Principal Chen, so he naturally listened to his advice. After dinner, Yi Qian suggested that they take a walk outside the sports field. It was a little hot in the southern province in May. The sniper base was located in the outskirts, surrounded by mountains. At night, there was a refreshing breeze that made one feel relaxed. The three of them slowly walked around the sports field, and some heavy words were slowly drawn out. Father Fu's eyes were bloodshot when he heard the last sentence. He stopped walking and looked at Yi Qian sternly. So the military is still investigating and hasn't gotten justice for my wife. The mastermind is still at large. He would never have thought that his lover, his wife, was actually murdered and sacrificed. It was someone wearing a combat uniform of the same color as the wife who had shot the wife, causing the wife who was trying to catch the criminal to be shot and killed. No matter how he thought about it, he would never have thought that his wife would be sacrificed in such a way. The military commission specially set up an investigation team for my mother's case. I only know that this is a serious matter and involves a lot of people. Even the military commission is investigating carefully and can't make too many moves. Dad, I don't know what stage it is at now. The military commission allowed me to go to the capital during the new year, and there hasn't been any news since. Father Fu clenched his fists so tightly that they cracked. Hearing this, he took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in his heart. He said to Yi Qian, "Leave this to me. You're a military school student, so it's not convenient for you to keep an eye on it. I'll do it. I'll get justice for your mother." Chapter 2666. Yi Qian suddenly felt a lump in his throat. Uncle Chen was right. The person who cared about Mommy the most in this world was Daddy. As for Mommy's matter, Daddy would definitely keep it in his heart and seek justice for Mommy. I still have a few of Mommy's diaries. They frequently mention things like smuggling. Dad, do you know who Mommy offended in the military back then? Father Fu shook his head like a roaring beast in his heart. Your mother and I never discuss work-related matters. What she did or what missions she carried out, Daddy knows nothing. Just like how your mother didn't know why Daddy appeared in her military back then. So, Daddy didn't have any clues. Yi Qian stood there in a daze, a little disappointed. The corners of his mouth were pressed tightly together. No one knew what he was thinking. Principal Chen, who was accompanying Father Fu, saw that Father Fu's arms were trembling in anger. He raised a hand and patted his father's shoulder lightly. "Major General, it's actually best to leave this matter to you. We can't leave it to Jane Eyre. She's still a military academy student. If even the military needs to be careful of someone, then he must have some influence. Once he finds out, Jane Eyre's days in the military academy will definitely not be easy." Father Fu immediately understood the deeper meaning behind Principal Chen's words. He had also thought of this. After Father Fu finished speaking, Principal Chen's eyes lit up. That Yi girl's biological father was not simple. He had thought deeply enough. "Yes, we didn't make any big moves before and told Yi girl not to get involved because we were afraid that the mastermind would want to deal with Yi girl. After all, the mastermind spent a lot of effort to raise Yi girl into a useless person back then." Principal Chen's words naturally shifted to Yi Qian. "Uncle Chen, don't." Just as Yi Qian opened his mouth, Uncle Chen raised his hand to stop him. He pointed at the barrack. "Yi girl, let the adults talk for a while. Go back to your room and rest. Wake up tomorrow morning to do some exercises and shoot a few rounds at the shooting range. I haven't seen you train in a long time, I don't know if you've regressed. Go back to your room and rest early. Dad will talk to Principal Chen." Father Fu also gestured for Yi Qian to go back to his room. Since it was inconvenient for his daughter to be present, he definitely couldn't let her stay. Yi Qian had no choice but to leave. Father Fu then said, "Principal Chen, thank you for taking care of my daughter all these years. I'll be rude. And call me brother. Major General Fu. You are a few years of age." Principal Chen. "As long as Major General Fu doesn't mind, I will." After taking a few steps, Yi Qian heard the two elders greet each other as brother. It was as if they had known each other for many years. Yi Qian knew that Principal Chen was going to talk about her childhood in Yi Jifan's house and her mother's remarriage. The sun shone brightly in the day and the moon shone brightly at night. Although the moon was not round, the moonlight was quiet and serene, like a thin veil covering the earth. Father Fu sat on the field and looked up at the moon without blinking. He stared at it for a long time before he forced back the tears in his eyes. "Brother, I'm sorry. I really can't hold it in. Jane Eyre, this child had it so hard when she was young." Father Fu tilted his head and looked at Principal Chen, who was sitting on the field with him. His voice was extremely hoarse. This child was just like the descendants of the Fu family. It was so hard when she was young. I thought that if she was adopted, it would be better than me, who was abandoned on the streets by a middle-aged woman. It was only after a few years that I found my original home in the capital and returned home. Who would have thought that my daughter's childhood was so much harder than mine? Chapter 2667. When Father Fu told Principal Chen about his childhood, it was as if he had opened his heart to Principal Chen. He really treated Principal Chen as his family. Therefore, Principal Chen wasn't surprised and listened very calmly. Old Master Fu's granddaughter and his only living son. He had accepted everything calmly. Now that he heard about Father Fu's suffering when he was young, Principal Chen was even more calm. "Brother, you had nowhere to go back because old Master Fu was in trouble. Little Yi is different. Who would have thought that Sun Dongqing would be so cruel? She is Sun Xueqing's sister from the same mother." Father Fu's eyes were still wet. When he heard this, he smiled bitterly. "Yes, I don't understand either. Jane Eyre is her niece. How could she be so cruel as to harm her own niece with an outsider? So, brother, I'm really grateful to you and uncle. If it weren't for you two, I definitely wouldn't have reunited with Jane Eyre today. My daughter might not even have lived to see me again." He was beaten by old Madame Yi, beaten by Yi Zhixiang, knocked out by Sun Yaozu and thrown into the snow on New Year's Eve. It was Uncle Jen who saved him. At school, he was bullied and wronged by Yi Zhifan's daughter. He even had to take the blame for her and admit his mistake. He would be beaten or scolded for anything that didn't go his way. He would have been bullied so miserably by his and his wife's beloved daughter. Brother, even if they're in jail now, I'm not willing to let them have a good life. I really can't accept it. Even if they're in jail, it won't dispel the hatred in my heart. It won't dispel. It won't dispel. Today Father Fu shed too many tears. It was as if he had shed all the tears he had accumulated over the past 20 years. As he spoke, this unyielding soldier shed tears several times. Principal Chen's heart was also aching. It's all in the past, all in the past. Fortunately, it's all in the past now. Little Yi has found you and finally has a home. Although Shuku village was the place where she grew up, little Yi did not have much affection for it. In the future, the Fu family would be Yi Wanwan's home. She finally had a home. Principal Chen's comforting words made Father Fu heave a long sigh of relief. Brother is right. Everything is over. I'll take care of the rest. I have to protect Tong Hongmei's daughter. I can't let her get hurt again. Just a little bit of grievance. If he wanted to spoil his daughter and prevent his daughter from reuniting with him, then he would have to try. Father Fu's eyes flashed with a trace of ruthlessness. You are little Ye's father, so we are at ease with you protecting her. However, little brother, you can't be impatient. Since you want to seek justice for martyr Sun Xueqing, you have to protect yourself. Little Yi wants to hide it from you. Firstly, she doesn't want you to get hurt. Secondly, she's probably worried about you. That's why you have to be good. You are little Ye's home and her pillar of support. You must not fall. Principal Chen reminded him very seriously. This matter has to be handled steadily. I can't let Jane Eyre worry. Don't worry, brother. I'll take care of it. Thinking of the good days ahead, Father Fu finally felt much better. The accumulated frustration in his head also faded a lot. People had to look ahead and not behind. His and his daughter's lives would get better and better. The old man at home would definitely see the birth of his great-grandson in his lifetime. Tomorrow, when Jane Eyre goes back to school, I have to go to Shuku village to see her adoptive father. Shuku village? As Father Fu spoke, he suddenly felt that the name of the village was particularly familiar, as if he had heard it somewhere before. Chapter 2668. You should. Although I didn't know martyr Sun Xueqing before, I can imagine that she was pregnant before marriage. If it wasn't for Yi Qian's adoptive father, brother, you probably wouldn't have seen her. In the past, because Uncle Jen was still there, she thought about returning to the village. Now, the only person she can think about is her adoptive father, Yi Xinfan, who loved and protected her when she was young. You should go to the village to pay respects to this simple man who died young. Principal Chen also supported Father Fu's decision to return to Shuku village. However, at this time, Father Fu's expression had changed a few times. Shuku village, Yi Xinfan. The name that he hadn't heard for a long time suddenly made him realize where he had heard of Shuku village. Oh, his family sure knows how to think. They want to give me a child and let me raise him. Bah! Their family can't even eat a full meal. Why should they raise a child for uncle's family? No way, I'm going back to Shuku village now. Food? How much food? And money? How much money is that? You're not lying to me, are you? If you have food and money, why do you need to send Yi Xinfan to the countryside to raise him as my son? Eldest uncle and his wife must be sick in the head. If we have food and money, what if Yi Xinfan grows up and wants to fight for the family property? Won't I lose a lot? No, I can't bring him back. If I bring him back, it'll be a loss. The middle-aged woman, who was neatly dressed and smiled amiably, suddenly changed her expression. She took the money and the food, but didn't want to bring him home. Father Fu still remembered this amiable, but vicious face. He remembered that she threw him on the road and disappeared in the blink of an eye. He didn't go. He held the 10 yuan in his hand and stared at the back of the middle-aged woman as she left. He didn't look back and started to climb the train back to the capital. When he was young, he only had one thought. He didn't want to be the son of his aunt and uncle. He wasn't his aunt's son. His surname wasn't Yi, it was Fu. His name was Yuxing, and his sister's name was Yu and Yi Xinfan. No wonder Hong Mei would marry Yi Xinfan. He had once told her that when he was young, due to his family's difficulties, he temporarily gave him to his aunt as a son and named him Yi Xinfan. Hong Mei must have married Yi Xinfan because of this. His Hong Mei, even though he had disappeared at that time, she had missed him. Fu Yuxing. Principal Chen saw Father Fu's expression alternating between sadness and joy. In the blink of an eye, he could see the joys and sorrows of the world from his face. For a moment Principal Chen was moved. He sighed and said, "Brother, don't mind martyr's son Xueqing remarrying. She had no choice." "Brother, I don't mind. I told Hong Mei that she later married Jian Er's adoptive father because Jian Er's adoptive father's name was Yi Xinfan. If we can find the marriage certificate that Hong Mei and Yi Jian's adoptive father received back then, I dare say that the photo on the marriage certificate must be a photo of me and Hong Mei. Hong Mei married Yi Xinfan because we have the same name. As for Shuku village, I almost went there that year and almost became Yi Xinfan. Didn't I just say that I was once homeless? It was what old Madame Yi did. I didn't expect that after all these twists and turns, I didn't die in her hands, but my daughter almost died in her hands." Principal Chen was stunned when he heard this. His mind was in a mess and he still couldn't make sense of it. Chapter 2669. It was impossible to find martyr son Xueqing and Yi Xinfan to register their marriage. But Headmaster Chen massaged his temples, trying to calm himself down. Then he said to Mr. Fu, "Brother Fu, how about this? I will ask you a question and you will answer it, so that you can solve this mess for me. Okay? How about it? Otherwise, I'm afraid I won't be able to figure it out." It was indeed a mess. Father Fu sighed. "It's not a mess. Brother, please ask. You used to be called Yi Xinfan. Old Madame Yi once threw you out. You have to tell me about this." This was the most confusing thing for Principal Chen. He added, "Uncle Jen told me that Ye's adoptive father wasn't old Madame Ye's biological son. He was old Madame Ye's eldest brother, Uncle Yi Jifan's son." It had been decades since the incident, and he could recall it clearly. Mr. Fu explained, "Old man Ye's eldest brother, Mr. Yi, married my father's youngest sister, who is also my aunt. Our Fu family was suppressed because of our family background. No one dared to marry my youngest aunt until she was in her 20s. Later, she married my uncle, who retired from the army." Principal Chen understood. That means the Fu family and the Yi family are related by marriage. Old Madame Yi married my brother's aunt and became the son-in-law of the Fu family. In that case, old Madame Yi has to call my brother's aunt sister-in-law. Yes, that's the relationship between the Fu family and the Yi family. Back then, I was sent to my aunt's house and changed my name to Yi Xinfan. I thought that when the Fu family's life stabilized, my father would take me back. I had a few older brothers, but they all died because of the chaos. In the end, only my youngest sister and I survived. Old Madame Yi was worried that I would be in trouble, so she sent me to my aunt." Principal Chen suddenly understood. I understand. You were sent to old Madame Ye's house and changed your name to Yi Xinfan. You became uncle and aunt's son. Then, how did you end up on the streets? Little Ye's adoptive father. Where did he come from?" Although I was young at that time, my memory wasn't bad. Back then, my aunt and uncle were both sick and dying. Because they couldn't find my father, they entrusted me to my uncle's younger brothers, Old Man Yi and Old Lady Yi, elder brother. You also know that in that era, even eating was a problem, let alone raising a child. Although my uncle and aunt left money and food for Old Man Yi and Old Lady Yi, I just didn't expect that after my uncle and aunt passed away, Old Madam Yi would throw me outside. Although I was young at that time, I knew I was from the capital. Old Madam Yi happened to drop me off at the bus station, so I grabbed the 10 yuan my aunt secretly gave me before she passed away and climbed into the car to the capital. At that time, it was not as convenient to go to the capital as it is now. There were trains and planes, so it was useless even if I had 10 yuan on me. It took me more than a year to beg for food all the way back to the capital. Elder brother, when you mentioned Shuka village, I vaguely felt that it was familiar. Then you mentioned Yi Xinfan. After going around in circles, both of us ended up in old Madame Ye's hands and were tortured. Principal Chen felt that his life was a bit full of ups and downs, but compared to his father Fu, he lived with his parents before he joined the army. Later, there was a flood in his hometown and he lost his home and parents, so he joined the army. Chapter 2670. As for the Yi girl's father, Major General Fu, he had been through a lot of ups and downs in his life. What shocked him even more was, the Fu family and the Yi family were in-laws. There's another question. Where did Yi Qian's adoptive father come from? I think we'll have to ask Old Man Yi. Maybe he'll know. Father Fu smiled bitterly and sighed deeply. He said to Principal Chen in a low voice, "Brother, there's a lot going on today. I want to be alone. Sorry to trouble you to stay with me for so long." There was indeed a lot going on. After such a big circle, the father had escaped from old Madame Ye's evil clutches. In the end, the daughter had still fallen into old Madame Ye's hands. "It's probably hot in the house. Let's go outside to cool off and get some fresh air." Principal Chen didn't persuade Father Fu to go back with him. He needed some time to digest everything that had happened today. Principal Chen quickly left. Father Fu sat alone in the field, motionless like a statue. His wife had married into the Yi family because of Yi Xinfan. Their daughter had fallen into the hands of old Madame Yi and Yi Zhifan because of his wife's death. She had been tortured and had almost been killed by Sun Yaozu. All of this had been secretly instigated by someone. First, Hong Mei had been sacrificed. Then, Yi Zhifan's family had raised Jane Eyre. What a vicious person! What a vicious plan! Was it targeting him or Hong Mei? He had to find out. He had to find out. No matter how powerful this person was, he had to find out who he was. The cool night breeze didn't disperse the anger in Father Fu's heart. However, Father Fu was calm enough to not do anything irrational. He didn't go back to his room to rest until the moon was high in the sky. Yi Qian was persuaded to go back by Principal Chen. "Go back and rest, little Yi. There's so much going on. It's not something you can figure out in a short time. You have to let your father recover. Weren't you shocked just now too? You're already so shocked, just because the great-aunt of the Fu family married into the Yi family. Your father knows so many things today. Can he recover? You don't have to persuade him. Leave the space for your father. Listen to Uncle Chen and go back to rest. You've stayed with him until almost 12 o'clock. That's enough." Yi Qian did not return to her room earlier. She was worried and hid behind the trees on both sides of the field to watch. Principal Chen walked over and caught her red-handed. Principal Chen was worried about her standing alone, so he accompanied her. Father Fu had been sitting the whole time and did not do anything else. Yi Qian did not want Principal Chen to accompany him, so he nodded gently. "Okay, Uncle Chen, I'll send you back to your room to rest. I've made you worry again tonight. In the future, leave these matters to your father. Study hard and don't be too distracted by your mother's matters." She also had to remember Captain Xia's words and not tell anyone about her return to the Fu family for the time being. Do it safely. Once we know who the mastermind is, everything will be easier. Principal Chen was much more relieved about Yi Qian because of Father Fu's arrival. With a major general as her father's shield, old uncle, Yi Qian's hard times are finally over. Yi Qian did not notice the slight smile on Principal Chen's lips. She was thinking about something else. She had forgotten to ask about the jade pendant. In the morning, Yi Jian and the soldiers of the sniper base had a moving target shooting session. The moving target, which was fully automatic, had two targets, the target and the hostage. At the same time, the two targets would move alternately. In this way, the soldiers' eyesight and body coordination would be tested. Chapter 26-71. When Father Fu saw Yi Qian and the 10 male soldiers standing together at the shooting range, his eyes were filled with a deep smile. When he saw his daughter, it was as if he was looking at his wife's valiant and heroic demeanor. Jane Eyre really resembles her mother, but she's a little tougher than her mother. Back in the day, whenever Hongmei was on the shooting range, the surrounding male soldiers were a little afraid to take out their guns. Father Fu, who was standing to the side, watched Yi Qian rapidly reload while chatting with Principal Chen. It was unknown how long Father Fu had meditated the previous night, but at 6 a.m. this morning, Yi Qian ran 2 laps and saw Father Fu stretching in preparation for his morning run. Yi Qian, who had just finished her morning run, saw this and decided to accompany Father Fu. The father and daughter ran 3,000 meters until they were drenched in sweat before they went to the cafeteria to eat. After eating, Yi Qian changed into her usual training uniform and went to the shooting range with the 10 male soldiers. After being reminded by Principal Chen, Yi Qian realized that she had not practiced with a moving target in a long time. She was originally worried that she would be a little rusty, but when Yi Qian picked up the rifle, the feeling of shooting instantly surged up. Even the rifle in her hand seemed to feel the surge of blood in her heart, as if it had come alive. Moving targets were not only not fixed but also people. As the target moved back, they would also need to move forward to shoot. In between, they would switch between rifles and pistols. At long range, they would use rifles and pistols at close range. Sometimes, they would even need to fire with both hands at the same time to maintain the target position. Today, Yi Qian and the others would be switching between rifles and pistols. Now, they were standing with rifles on their backs and pistols in their hands. The sniper base was a place to train snipers. Ever since Principal Chen became the chief instructor, some of the training methods at the sniper base had been changed by Principal Chen. He didn't want the flashy ones, the ones that looked good but were useless, the ones that put on airs, and the ones that looked monotonous. After Headmaster Chen's big reform, even the sniper coaches threw themselves into the training. Principal Chen was the world-class sniper king. Even though he had retired from the army long ago, his skills as a sniper king were still excellent. Right now, Yi Qian and his men were standing at the 150-meter target. One of their legs was upright while the other was sideways. The base of their thighs was at a 35-degree angle. They held their pistols with both hands and aimed at the target. Principal Chen did not give the signal to begin, so the 11 snipers, including Yi Qian, had to remain in that position without moving an inch. Many troops tend to neglect their basic skills during training. When I was assigned here, I also noticed the same problem. They ignore their basic skills and naively think that their overall skill level is good. Naive thinking and wrong behavior. I used half a month to let them know that without basic skills, a sniper is just a sitting duck for the enemy's bullet. When little Yi was 14 years old, she started to practice her basic skills with me. She carried weights on her wrists. At first, she carried 1 kilogram with each hand. Later on, it slowly increased to 5 kilograms. Now, little Yi is holding a sniper rifle. Her body has long developed a conditioned reflex. No matter what kind of sniper rifle is in her hands, the weight does not seem to change. Even if it is a sniper rifle taken from the enemy, as long as it is in her hands, she can use it. Principal Chun intended to let Father Fu know how Yi Qian used to train. He did not hide anything and told him everything. As a father, he naturally wanted to know everything about his daughter's past. Principal Chun felt that there was nothing to hide. Chapter 26-72. Father Fu actually knew a thing or two about sniping. He nodded in agreement and said, Hongmei once told me that there is no eternal sniper. Once the technical foundation is not developed, there will be a bottleneck in the later stages. No matter what, they will not be able to break through this bottleneck. In the end, their sniping skills will regress and their sniping skills will no longer be good. That's right. That's the theory. So, Martyr's son Xueqing is also a sniper? Principal Chen was a little surprised. And an outstanding one at that? Father Fu smiled and nodded. Yes, she's quite outstanding. Back then, during the army selection, she entered as a sniper. Our research base was in their camp at that time, and we often heard other soldiers' comments about Hongmei. And the most common thing they said was that Hongmei has a talent for shooting. She can use any gun in her hands, and her shooting accuracy is quite high. Shooting talent? Little Yi has it too. Could it be that it's hereditary? Principal Chun thought to himself, but he smiled and said, Then Brother Fu must take a good look. Little Yi is also a very talented child. No matter what gun is in her hands, her shooting speed is always several seconds faster than others. Often, when others have just fired their first bullet, she has already finished her second bullet and is ready to fire her third bullet. Father Fu was shocked. Her shooting speed is twice as fast as others? Ha ha ha, that's right, twice as fast. This is only twice as fast compared to her comrades in the team. If compared to the snipers here, ha ha ha, it's not just twice, it's twice or thrice. Principal Chun quite enjoyed Father Fu's shock. It was right to be shocked, it would be wrong not to be shocked. It was not a normal shock. Father Fu sighed after a while and said slowly, Hongmei is not that good. Her shooting accuracy is higher than her comrades, but to be several times faster than others. I have never heard of that. Speaking of which, Principal Chun felt a burst of pride in his heart. Because he was his Father Fu, Principal Chen didn't hide his pride at all. He laughed heartily. Of course, not everyone has Little Ye's talent. However, Little Yi must have inherited the talent of Martyr's son Xueqing. This kind of talent has been put to good use in her, so she has surpassed her master. Father Fu was happy that his daughter was so outstanding. He couldn't wait to see it. Half an hour later, Yi Qian, who had been standing with the gun in her hands, was still standing steadily. There was not a single tremble in her hands. A bird landed on her head and chirped as it spread its wings and landed on her shoulder. Surprisingly, it did not fly away. It walked along her shoulder to her left arm, hopped, and finally landed on Yi Qian's gun. Birds in the wild were not like birds that were not afraid of people. Birds in the wild would immediately spread their wings and fly away if there was even the slightest movement. It was even more impossible for them to land on a person and jump around on a person's body. However, it had landed on Yi Qian. From this, it could be seen how good Yi Qian's basic skills were. After standing still for a long time, not only did her body not tremble, even her breathing did not fluctuate at all. Before she even started shooting, Father Fu's palms were already sweating when he saw this scene. He muttered, "Good. Really good. Really good. The student has surpassed her master. Hongmei, our daughter is good. I'm not afraid of you being angry. Our daughter is better than you." In his heart, Father Fu swept away his sadness and thought happily. Chapter 26-73. The bird didn't fly away immediately. It treated Yi Qian as a tree and stayed there for about a minute before it spread its wings and flew away. Having Yi Qian's basic skills at this level was already quite impressive. The bird flew away. As Principal Chun made a gesture, Yi Qian and the other 11 soldiers, who were holding assault pistols, quickly adjusted their shooting positions and fired their assault pistols at the same time. Modern military pistols mainly consisted of self-defense pistols and assault pistols. Self-defense pistols usually had a short shooting range of about 50 meters and were single-shot. The pistols at the sniper base were assault pistols, also known as combat pistols. Principal Chun had directly applied to the military to replace the original single-shot pistols. Half a month later, a new batch of combat pistols had arrived at the base. Although Yi Qian had stayed at the sniper base before, she hadn't used the latest batch of assault pistols, which had a magazine capacity of 20 bullets and an effective shooting range of 100 to 150 meters. She stood there for 40 minutes, during which she was treated as a tree by the bird. She quickly changed the safety and loaded the gun. Bang, 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 bang. Slightly concentrated gunshots resounded through the shooting range in the mountains. Father Fu, who only had eyes for his daughter, brightened up. As expected, his daughter's shooting speed was indeed faster than the other soldiers. She finished firing 5 bullets and quickly put the pistol back into the holster at her waist. At the same time, her left hand tightened the grip of the rifle. By the time the pistol was put back into the holster, her left hand was already holding the rifle. She retracted her right hand and started to fire. With just a few actions, Father Fu was already applauding. Good, good, good. He couldn't help but cheer. What a wonderful shooting, what smooth movements. The whole set of actions was so smooth that even the onlookers couldn't help but be excited for her and cheer for her. Too good. She started to shoot with the rifle. The other soldiers had only just finished firing 5 bullets. 5 assault pistol shots and 15 rifle shot. Target completed. Enter the moving target area and complete the first type of shooting training. The first type of shooting training was on flat ground. The second type was in the mountains. The third type was in the forest. The fourth type was in the highlands. The fifth type was in the desert. Therefore, they were categorized from easy to difficult, until the final level of training became more and more difficult. The difficulty level would be so difficult that it was beyond the imagination of ordinary people. On the other hand, every time Yi Qian completed a difficult training session, his clothes would be stained by the salt in his sweat. The fabric would no longer be soft and would stand up straight. Principal Chun had become the head instructor here. So far, all the snipers were still in the first category of shooting training, but it was almost over. Looking at the 10 soldiers training with Yi Qian and their average speed, a small smile gradually appeared on his serious face. Although she was still slower than little Yi, she had basically met his requirements. After firing 15 rounds, Yi Qian slung the rifle on his back and sprinted forward like an arrow. Brother Fu, how was it? When Principal Chun was running in Yi Qian, he asked Father Fu with a smile, "Is she worse or better than Mom?" "She's even better than her mother. Just like what you said, the student has surpassed the master." Father Fu was a little excited. This was the first time he had seen Yi Qian train, and he was stunned. His and Hongmei's daughter was really amazing. Ha ha, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Little Yi has more to offer. Principal Chun couldn't help but laugh louder. He pointed to the front and said, "Let's go to the front and watch her sniping. You'll be even more proud of her." Hearing this, Father Fu strode forward. Chapter 2674. Father Fu couldn't wait to see Yi Qian's shooting skills. He strode forward until he was a step behind Principal Chun. In the end, he broke into a jog and headed towards the sniping range. The entire shooting range was very, very large. Yi Qian's sniping range was about 200 meters away from the rifle and submachine gun shooting range. Yi Qian ran as fast as he could, and the soldiers who had finished shooting with their rifles were also sprinting. The rifles were slung over their shoulders and the submachine guns were holstered. Because they were running so fast, it was as if their feet didn't touch the ground. They covered the distance of 200 meters in the blink of an eye. The sniper rifle was right in front of them, but they had to find their own sniping targets. At the same time, they also had to find a position where they could snipe from. This was the difference between Principal Chen's training and that of other instructors. In traditional training, they would fix on a specific sniping target and tell the snipers that it was their target. But Principal Chen didn't do that. In his world of sniping, a sniper could shoot from any position. Even if it seemed impossible to snipe from a place, Principal Chen still believed that it was possible. If it seemed impossible to snipe a target, then he would create one on the spot. There was a patch of grass 200 meters away. The terrain was relatively flat and the grass was green. There was no hidden sniping range at all. And the next target they needed to snipe would have to pass through this patch of grass to complete the mission. Father Fu ran over and stood still on the periphery. It was impossible for him to snipe through the grass without any cover, but he knew that it wasn't difficult for a sniper. That girl already knew how to quickly find a favorable terrain to cover her sniping when she was 16 years old. Uncle and I took her to the desert for training. She could lie in the sand without moving for 8 hours, day or night. That Yi girl is very good at enduring hardship. It's said that only by enduring the most hardships can one rise to the top. That's true. She endured the most difficult 4 years. With a good foundation, she can endure the harsh training that follows. She won't give up halfway. Principal Chen ran over and stood side by side with Father Fu. They watched as Yi Qian quickly used grass and leaves to weave a camouflage for himself. Then he picked up his sniper rifle and began to slowly move forward. There are infrared sensors all around. Once they are scanned by the infrared sensors, their equipment will automatically emit a beeping sound. When the sound comes, their body will be exposed. The enemies, hiding in the surroundings, will then blindly scan them. At the same time, this means that their sniping mission has failed. Principal Chen's point as he gestured to Father Fu, who was staring fixedly at Yi Qian. The trees all around us are equipped with the most advanced infrared sensors and speed detectors. There's even special equipments buried. Even the ground's buried. Basically, they're all soldiers sent to the front line. Principal Chen's eyes narrowed slightly. His gaze fell on one of the snipers. At the same time, he pointed at Father Fu and said, "The third sniper on my left has a problem with his camouflage. Brother Fu, see if you can find anything." Father Fu had focused all his attention on his daughter. He really hadn't noticed the other soldiers. When he heard this, he immediately looked over. Chapter 26:75. Forgive his poor eyesight, but he hadn't noticed anything wrong. Look at his armband, Principal Chen reminded him. Father Fu focused and looked again. He saw the red on the sniper's armband flash past under the sunlight, revealing the sniper's hiding position. I see it. It's all green all around. There aren't many other colors, but there's a flash of red. This is a fatal lack of consideration. As he spoke, Father Fu saw that the sniper had realized his mistake and immediately crouched down to cover himself. It only took a minute for the sniper to correct his mistake, but it didn't escape Principal Chen's eyes. From Principal Chen's cold gaze, Father Fu knew that the sniper was going to suffer a little. The sniper base in the southern province had specially hired a world-class sniper king to be the chief instructor. Not only was he responsible for sending snipers to the frontline troops, but he was also responsible for sending snipers to the conference hall. These snipers would appear around major festivals and when the leaders went out to snipe. If they were careless, the consequences would be severe. It would definitely be a disaster. Therefore, Principal Chen's requirements for all the soldiers in the training were quite strict. He was just as strict as Yi Qian's training. Learning how to camouflage and pass through all kinds of terrain was a special skill that an excellent sniper had to learn. Could save their lives and kill their enemies. That's right. Therefore, a sniper's careless mistake will be discovered by the enemy sniper, who will immediately shoot and finish the job. Principal Chen's cold gaze swept across the other sniper. At the same time, he swept a glance in Yi Qian's direction. He didn't realize that Yi Qian had already become one with the grass. His entire body was a perfect camouflage. Principal Chen's eyes had a faint smile. Little Yi made the same mistake in the past and suffered a lot because of it. I was very strict with her when she was 15 or 16 years old. Sometimes, when I calm down and think about it, I wonder if I'm too strict with a child. Should I be a little more relaxed? But every time this thought flashed through my mind, I would deny it. Every second on the sniping field is a must. Me relaxing my requirements for her today would be irresponsible to her. So, along the way, Yi girl, who didn't go to school for a whole year, was brought by me and uncle to various places. After a year, this girl has reached the point where even I can't find her hiding place sometimes. Father Fu already knew the reason why he hadn't gone to school for a whole year in high school last night. A trace of sadness flashed through his eyes, but he quickly adjusted himself. She then said, "In high school, I was forced to leave Anyang First Middle School by Yi Jifan's scheme. Now, it seems that it was a blessing in disguise. With this year's training, Jane Eyre has a solid foundation." Ha ha ha, that's right. It was a blessing in disguise. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had the heart to let little Yi drop out of school for a year. Principal Chen agreed. That was indeed the case. The lawn was wide. Yi Jian and all the snipers moved very slowly to ensure that they would not be discovered. When a sensor device on one of the snipers made a beeping sound, Headmaster Chen's thick eyebrows furrowed. "Hi, come back!" He raised his voice and shouted. His voice was a little cold. Father Fu knew that he was going to reprimand the sniper, so he pointed to the front and motioned for him to go over and watch. In Father Fu's eyes, there was only his daughter, Yi Qian. He really didn't care about the results of the other snipers. It wasn't something he could care about, and it wasn't something he could interfere with. There was no need to pay attention to it. Chapter 2676. He only knew that his daughter had already disappeared from his field of vision. While he was talking to Principal Chen, he actually couldn't see where his daughter was. The perfectly disguised Yi Qian stuck close to a slightly protruding piece of terrain. Right now, she looked like a normal protruding piece of grass. She was so perfect that even Principal Chen couldn't find her for a while. In the end, Father Fu had to use a magnifying glass, and with the guidance of an instructor, he finally found Yi Qian's disguised figure. After an hour of stealth, Yi Qian had already moved halfway across the sniping range. Little Yi has been giving our soldiers a show of strength from the start. One of the soldiers in the company had always been a top-notch marksman, but when he compared himself to Little Yi, he was completely wiped out. After that, this soldier no longer dared to talk about his previous results, nor did he dare to raise any objections to the principal's training. The instructor knew Yi Qian and had a very deep impression of Yi Qian, so he began chatting with Father Fu about how they met Yi Qian. Although they knew Yi Qian, they didn't know about Yi Qian's background. Now that they saw a major general who looked like Yi Qian, they immediately thought that he was Yi Qian's father. If her father wanted to know more about his daughter, they could pick some things that happened during their training and talk about it. When Father Fu heard this, the smile in his eyes deepened so much that it looked like there were small whirlpools in them. His and Hong Mei's daughter. She really left her story behind wherever she went. One of the arrogant soldiers objected to Principal Chen starting the basics training from scratch. He felt that with his level of skill, it would be a waste of his time to go through the basics training again. When his daughter found out about this, she had a competition with this soldier. After the competition, This soldier's legs and hands were shaking. In the end, when he was holding a rifle, his hands were shaking violently, let alone shooting at a target. This time, his daughter had shocked all the snipers. At the same time, they no longer dared to raise any objections to Principal Chen's training. All of them obediently started building their foundations from scratch. However, Principal Chen had become the head instructor of the sniper base. Yi Qian had already gone to Xiang City to study at the university. Usually, he rarely came back. Therefore, the instructor of the sniper base didn't know much about Yi Qian. Father Fu, on the other hand, was very happy. Even if he only knew a little bit about Yi Qian's daily life from someone else, it was already very good for him. It allowed him to know more about Yi Qian's past. At 10:30 in the morning, Yi Qian sneaked across the lawn. When she approached the sniper zone, she flipped over and grabbed the sniper rifle that was slightly hot from the sun. Sniping target number 1 is complete. At the same time, locate target number 2 as quickly as possible and lock on. When the instructor in front gave Yi Qian the order, Yi Qian was already assembling the rifle. The rifle in her hand was a direct-action sniper rifle. This was the first choice of most professional snipers. Because the bolt of a direct-action sniper rifle was easier to control, this type of sniper rifle could find a secondary target faster than a semi-automatic rifle. Therefore, the direct-action sniper rifle was the first choice of most professional snipers. But for Yi Qian, this wasn't the case. In her world of sniping, there was no distinction between direct action and semi-automatic. In addition, semi-automatic rifles now had a precise bolt. Yi Qian was even less picky about sniper rifles. She could flexibly use any gun in her hand. Sniping target number 1 had already been found. It was a green apple hidden in the grass. Yi Qian didn't deliberately look for the best sniping position. Traditional shooting instructors believed that if the sniper deviated from the approved position, it would lead to failure. But Principal Chen taught Yi Qian that wasn't the case. Chapter 26:77. Bang! The first sniper bullet finally rang out. It had been more than 2 hours since Yi Qian and the others had crossed the lawn. Yi Qian had successfully sniped the target. The green apple hidden in the grass was blasted into smithereens by a 12mm sniper bullet. The smithereens splattered everywhere, and even the wind carried the fragrance of the apple. The tranquility of the lawn was broken. The rest of the snipers stood up when they heard Yi Qian's gunshot. Their camouflage was quite good. When they stood up, it was as if there were giants growing in the grass. There was only one target. Yi Qian had successfully sniped the target, so all the snipers had failed to snipe the target this time. The snipers who stood up looked around them. When they saw that their comrades were all there, they understood who had sniped the target. It's Yi Qian, right? It must be her. There's no need to look anymore. Yes, it's her. Other than He Hai, who was called away by the president, we're all here. It must be Yi Qian. She's really good. Every time she comes back, she gives us a show of strength. She thinks she's improved a lot, but when she comes, she feels that her improvement is not enough. How can we compare to her? Last time, all of us were defeated by her. If you want to beat her, you'll have to practice a few more times. The snipers who had gathered after hearing the gunshot walked over and whispered to each other as they looked around. They hadn't seen Yi Qian yet. Even at such a close distance, they still couldn't see Yi Qian. About a minute later, Yi Qian, who had completed her sniping in the Hawkins style, found the second target and locked onto it. At this time, she pulled out a small flag from her pocket and stuck it into the grass. When the bright red flag flitted across the green, everyone's gazes turned to look at it. Immediately after, they saw a pile of grass squirming. After a while, it stood up. Less than 20 meters away from them, Yi Qian's figure appeared. Yi Qian gestured for all the soldiers to stop. Then she jogged over to Principal Chen with her still-mounted sniper rifle. Look, it's really her. Is there a need to doubt it? Of course it's her. We're all pretty much at the same level. If someone were to complete the sniping, they wouldn't be a few dozen meters behind. At most, they'd be 4 or 5 meters behind. It's over. I'll be scolded by the head preceptor again. It's been more than half a year and I'm still so far behind her. It'll be embarrassing if word gets out. Go, go, go. What's there to be embarrassed about? I'll just work harder. Sigh, it's a little embarrassing. She's a female soldier and we're male soldiers. Let's not talk about it anymore. There's still a moving target later. Let's see if we can get back some face on the moving target. Looking at Yi Qian, who was holding a gun in his hand and saying something to the headquarter, the male soldiers felt very complicated. The bullet is a little wet, and the pressure in the barrel has increased significantly. For safety reasons, let's check the bullets in the other sniper rifles. Yi Qian informed Principal Chun of the problem she had discovered. Wet or oily bullets would increase the pressure in the barrel by a lot. The most serious consequence would be an explosion and the barrel would swell. This would be fatal for a sniper who was on a sniping mission. Principal Chun removed the magazine and looked at it. With a serious expression, he said, "It looks like even the ammunition storage needs to be rebuilt. The bullets in the old ammunition storage are damp. Let's check all the bullets one more time before we proceed with the next training." Due to the bullet problem, the training was interrupted. Father Fu took the opportunity to talk to Yi Qian. "You're even better than your mother. Very, very good." The entire shooting competition was very exciting. Chapter 2678. I heard from one of Mom's former comrades with the surname Kai that if Mom claimed to be second in marksmanship in the army, no one would dare to claim to be first. I think I've probably inherited Mom's talent. Yi Qian had been sneaking around in the sunlight for a long time. Even the strands of hair on her forehead were drenched in sweat and stuck to her beautiful forehead. A bead of sweat condensed at the tip of her hair. As she spoke, the sweat dripped onto her long eyelashes and disappeared into her eyes in the blink of an eye. Yi Qian, whose eyes were used to being stung by sweat, didn't feel a trace of discomfort. Because of the smile on Father Fu's face, her eyes were as bright as the stars. Her delicate face didn't seem tired from the training. Instead, it made her look even more radiant and confident. His daughter really liked this kind of training. When Father Fu realized this, he felt happy but also a little bitter. This kind of training was actually very, very hard. But when his daughter was 14 years old, she would rather suffer like this than return to Yi Jifan's house. It was obvious that the hardships she went through in that house were several times harder than the training. Father Fu clenched his fists lightly, but he didn't show it on his face. Instead, he smiled and raised his hand. His gaze was gentle as he wiped away the sweat on Yi Qian's forehead. "Yes, you've inherited your mom's talent, but you're even more outstanding than your mom. Dad is very happy. My daughter has grown up to be so outstanding without her parents' accompaniment and protection. Jane Eyre, Dad is very happy." When he saw how outstanding his daughter was, he blamed himself for not being able to find the mother and daughter. Father Fu hid his self-blame well and didn't let Yi Qian discover it. When Yi Qian started shooting at the moving target, Father Fu had to hold himself back a few times before he could stop himself from applauding on the spot. The hostage target and the target appeared at the same time. Sometimes, the target would suddenly retreat after appearing, and the hostage target would appear at the same time. Father Fu noticed that a few soldiers had accidentally hit the hostage target because they were shooting at close-range self-defense pistols. On the other hand, Yi Qian didn't do that. Her reaction speed was directly proportional to her speed. Whenever the hostage target appeared, she would stop shooting. Whenever the target appeared, she would immediately use her rifle and submachine gun to finish shooting. What we're training now is to have sharp eyes and quick hands, and synchronize the reaction of the brain and hands. Little Yi can complete such training very well. She didn't make a single mistake. Principal Chen's explanation made Father Fu more aware of how much hard work his daughter had put in order for her to be so outstanding today. It was 11 o'clock in the morning when the entire sniper training session ended, and it was time for Yi Qian to leave the base. After it was over, Yi Qian did not leave immediately. Instead, he shared his experience with the snipers. The snipers were equipped with rifles, submachine guns, and self-defense pistols. Yi Qian, who was standing beside the snipers, quickly switched between the three types of guns as the targets changed. Her movements were so fast that it was only a blur before she finished switching. You have to form a kind of conditioned awareness. When the target appears, your hand will have already accurately touched the gun you need to use. You don't have to think about it midway before you know what gun you need to use. This is a fixed memory. There are no shortcuts to improving it. You can only increase your speed by practicing more and more until your brain and hands are in sync. Yi Qian did not hide anything. Whatever the snipers wanted to know, as long as she knew, she would answer them one by one without any ambiguity. The snipers listened attentively and committed everything to memory. When Yi Qian left the base and they did not see her during their afternoon training, they regretted it for a long time. Chapter 26:79. No matter what, Yi Qian had to return to school at 5 o'clock. This was the time for students to return to school. She had to abide by the time she returned to school because of her personal affairs. It's even more inconvenient for me to call you directly. Sometimes I can't even get my phone for a few months. Even if I can get my landline, the number I can call is only my work number. If you have any problems, you can write to me anytime. Also, you have to remember that you can't take on everything alone. Now that you have Papa, Papa will be your protection and support. Jian'er, you can rest assured and leave everything to Papa to handle. Leave the military commission to me as well. I will keep a close eye on them and won't let them off just because they have a powerful background. Although the Fu family is small in number, we still know some people. If we really want to see who has more power, we don't have to be afraid. You just have to study hard at school. You don't have to worry about anything outside, and you don't have to worry about me. I don't need my own daughter to worry about me. Sitting in the car leaving the sniper base, the father and daughter spoke as softly as they did on the plane. Even the soldiers driving could not hear them. Yi Qian needed to rush to the airport. Father Fu insisted on sending him, and Yi Qian could only agree. Listening to Chuanchuan's advice, Yi Qian felt as warm as hot spring water. He nodded from time to time. Having her father's protection was even more reassuring than being protected by her boyfriend. She really felt that even if the sky fell, her father would hold it up for her. He would definitely protect her and keep her safe. Principal Chen also reminded me not to disclose our father-daughter relationship for the time being. I thought about it last night and it's true. For your safety, everything will be done as it is on the surface. We can't let anyone find out anything, especially the person we need to find. When you reach school, don't come out unless something happens. School is the safest place. If you don't come out, I will be more at ease. If anything, like the last mission, you have comrades with you, so I will be more at ease. In short, you can't act alone, understand? Seeing that they were about to separate, Father Fu told him everything he could think of. He was afraid that he would miss something. This was how parents always put their children first. No matter how capable their children were, in their hearts, their children would always be children who had not grown up. Hearing Father Fu's careful advice, Yi Qian's heart softened. In the end, she simply hugged Father Fu's arm and rested her head on his shoulder. She chuckled softly. Dad, you take care of everything. Why do I feel like I'm not in university? I feel like a child in kindergarten. I don't need to care about anything. I just need to care about myself. If you can really go back to kindergarten, I'll be even happier. Father Fu liked the closeness between Yi Qian and himself. This was the closeness between a father and daughter by blood. There was nothing that could be severed, and no one could stop it. Father Fu sighed after laughing. You suffered too much when you were young. I have to make it up to you. If I can really make you feel like a child in kindergarten, I'll be even happier. You should relax your skinny shoulders. You can't carry so many things on your shoulders anymore. I'm the one who has to shoulder the heavy responsibility of the family, not you. Yi Qian's eyes were a little wet. Chapter 2680. Captain Xia had once said that she could tell him about her situation and let him handle it. But for some reason, she couldn't do that no matter what. In the depths of her heart, she stubbornly believed that this was her family's problem and that she had to solve it by herself. How could she drag Captain Xia down? Even if he was her lover and family member, she couldn't let him shoulder her family's problems. That would make her feel guilty. But now that her father had said this, she didn't feel guilty at all. I've heard you. Don't worry, I'll take good care of myself. I won't leave school unless something happens. But you have to take good care of yourself too. You can't put yourself in danger because of Mom. If I find out, Dad, I won't care if I'm still a student. Even if it was a threat, Papa Fu still felt comfortable. His daughter was concerned about him and was thinking about him. Okay. I won't put myself in danger. I promise. With that, Father Fu laughed heartily. There were more fine lines at the corners of his eyes. Both of us have to take good care of ourselves. Old Master still misses us. Yi Qian listened to her father's laughter and gently closed her eyes with the rocking of the car. This was really good. It was so good that it felt like a dream. But it wasn't a dream. She knew very well that this wasn't a dream. It was real. She had found her father and was now resting on his shoulder. Even if the sky fell, her father would hold it up. She just needed to be well protected. In her previous life, she was finally free. Her shoulders that had been pressed down suddenly relaxed. Even her chest wasn't so heavy anymore. Sun Yaozu was dead, old Madame Yi had passed away, Yi Zhixiang had taken her 2 sons to a foreign country, Yi Zhifan had fallen from grace, Sun Dongqing was in prison, and Yi Ying had even changed her surname to Sun Ying. Now that she had fallen into Madame Li's hands, she would forever lose the right to marry into the Li family. Everything had been settled one by one. Now, it was time to deal with her mother and… Right, there was also the jade pendant. At the thought of the jade pendant, Yi Qian, who had his eyes closed, suddenly opened them. He sat up a little straighter, so much so that Father Fu could not help but ask, "What's wrong? Dad, do you know that Mom has a priceless hornless dragon jade pendant?" Mr. Fu's heart tightened and he let out a sigh of relief when he heard the words. "Yes, I know. This is a token of my love for your mother and it is the last treasure of the Fu family. If you didn't mention it, I would have almost forgotten about it. I would have thought that this jade pendant had been lost." The Fu family used to be a wealthy family in the Jiangnan region. During their glory days, they even had several treasures from the palace. The hornless dragon jade pendant was passed down from the ancestors of the Fu family, and its history was quite impressive. After all, before the Republic of China, only members of the royal family could wear the hornless dragon jade. Yi Qian had also thought that the jade pendant could have been given to her by Father Fu. But more likely, the mastermind behind the scenes had given it to her mother and asked her to do something. Then, her mother refused and wanted to use the jade pendant as evidence. Who knew that before she could do anything, she would be killed? Now that it had become a token of love, then… Yi Zhifan had always said that the mastermind behind the jade pendant was behind it. Yi Qian's brows were furrowed. She softly told Father Fu what Yi Zhifan had said to her in prison. Father Fu's face darkened when he heard this. Ridiculous! How could a piece of jade help him achieve a meteoric rise? Chapter 2681. From Father Fu's reaction, it was clear that this priceless jade was a token of love. Other than that, there was no other meaning. It was supposed to be a token of love, but it was used by someone as a tool for personal gain. The anger in Father Fu's heart was not small. His face was ashen and extremely ugly, because this was equivalent to blaspheming the true meaning of the jade. Yi Qian's heart was already in turmoil. Grandpa Zhen said that before one had enough ability to own this jade, it would be a disaster in their hands. If that was the case, Grandpa Zhen was wrong? The jade itself was not guilty. The one who was guilty was the person who wanted to use the jade to stir up trouble. Since it was a token of love from her parents, then she had to get it back. She had to find Sun Ying and get the jade back. The jade I gave your mother. I'm afraid it was used by someone. After his anger, Father Fu calmed down again. His brows were furrowed, and his expression was cold. Perhaps the jade was just a distraction to make you and Yi Jifan think that the owner of the jade wanted to harm your mother. And the owner of the jade is you, Father, Yi Qian said softly. When he said this, Father Fu and Yi Qian were both shocked. The jade was given to her mother by Father Fu. According to Yi Jifan's information, and the letter written by the mastermind to Yi Jifan, Yi Qian's expression suddenly changed. He said to Father Fu, Father, after you send me to the airport, let the soldiers send you to the Caesar Hotel. Mother's diary and the letter written by the mastermind to Yi Jifan, I put them on the 21st floor of the Caesar Hotel. After you go there, someone will take care of you. I put everything in the safe in the wardrobe. The password is Mother's birthday and my birthday. Yi Qian's birthday happened to be on the second day of the second lunar month. Father Fu, whose face was already ashen, was now cold and ruthless. What a vicious plan, what a patient plan. This person wants us father and daughter to kill each other. The jade pendant was once owned by Father Fu, and Yi Jifan had kept the letter. It was clearly written that with this piece of jade, Yi Jifan would have a meteoric rise. At the same time, Uncle Zhen told Yi Qian that jade was a scourge. Later on, even Principal Chen believed that although the jade was priceless, it was a scourge. Even if it was the relic of the martyr Sun Xueqing, it would not be easy to retrieve it. As a result, Yi Qian was also misled into thinking that the jade pendant could not be taken back. If she took it back, it would be a disaster. The person behind the jade pendant would find out that she was investigating the death of martyr Sun Xueqing, which would bring danger to her. Not only was Yi Qian misled, even Xia Jinyuan was misled. Father Fu spoke Yi Qian's mind, causing Yi Qian's heart to shudder violently. So ruthless. Dad, that person is really ruthless. How ruthless. He's taking one step at a time. Not only does he want us father and daughter to kill each other, he also has other plans. Yi Qian thought about his previous life. He thought about how Yi Ying had gone abroad to study and married into a rich family not long after. As for himself, he lived in a dark and damp place without any proof of his identity. That person is too ruthless, too ruthless. It didn't matter if he was targeting her mother or her father. In his previous life, he had completely ruined her and prevented her from reuniting with her father. In his previous life, he had become a useless person. He had no idea that her father had been searching for her and her mother. He even didn't know her real identity, her real father. Chapter 2682. In this life, if it weren't for Big Brother's appearance, allowing her to find her father in advance and find out about her father and her mother's past, knowing that her father hadn't given up on searching for her mother for more than 20 years, then once she found out that the person behind the jade pendant was her father, she would have only one thought: she would want to take revenge on her father, who had abandoned her mother and tried to raise her into a useless person. Whether it was her being raised into a useless person, or her finding the person behind the jade pendant with her own ability to complete her revenge, both outcomes would cause her loved ones to feel pain and her enemies to laugh. Let the real mastermind laugh from the beginning to the end. In her previous life, that person must have laughed from the beginning to the end. What a ruthless heart, what a meticulous plan. Yi Qian's lips were trembling. Dad, if Big Brother hadn't told me about my relationship with the Fu family in advance, and let me know that you had been looking for my mother all this time, when I found out that you were the mastermind behind the jade pendant, Dad, I would have definitely sought revenge on you. I would have done everything I could to seek revenge on you. At that time, no matter how outstanding I am, I would have ruined my future by murdering a major general. Dad, that person is really ruthless, really ruthless. He has calculated all of the schemes. Thank goodness I found you in advance and knew that you had never abandoned my mother. I knew that you didn't even know about my existence. Otherwise, I would have really misunderstood. I would have been blinded by hatred. I would have been manipulated by the real mastermind, to you. Yi Qian couldn't continue, but Father Fu knew what his daughter wanted to say. Father Fu held Yi Qian's hand tightly. Although his heart was burning with anger, he was very calm. Although his voice was soft, it was extremely steady. No, Dad believes that you wouldn't. You're so outstanding and you have a strong heart. How could you be manipulated by the real mastermind? No, Dad believes that you definitely wouldn't. Why was his daughter so afraid? She was so afraid that her whole body was trembling. Everything that was said now was just speculation. It hadn't really happened, so how could she be so afraid? Yi Qian was very afraid because she had experienced her previous life. She, who came with the hatred of her previous life, suddenly found out that the person behind the jade pendant who killed her mother and tried to raise her was actually her biological father. She really couldn't guarantee that she would be able to control herself. Don't think about anything. We should be happy. In the past, we were in the light while the enemy was in the dark. But now, it's different. We're also in the dark. He wanted to spoil you, but he failed. He wanted to prevent us from reuniting with each other, but he also failed. He also wanted to see us kill each other, but he also failed. Jane Eyre, you should be happy that we've seen through his scheme. We're no longer passive and can take the initiative to attack. Why are you still afraid of something that will never happen again? Or do you not trust me? No. Yi Qian replied quickly. No, it's not that I don't trust you. That's right. Since you trust me, then what do you have to be afraid of? Father Fu stroked the top of Yi Qian's head. We're not afraid of the unknown. We're just afraid that we're not strong enough. In Dad's eyes, my daughter is strong enough. She's strong enough. There's nothing that can stop her, and I don't believe that she would be manipulated by others. Dad has so much confidence in you. Don't you have confidence in yourself? Chapter 2683. Father Fu's gentle voice was full of encouragement. He smiled at his daughter, who made him proud. You don't have to be afraid of what you already know, and you don't have to be hesitant about what you don't know. You're a soldier, your biggest enemy is yourself. Why would you be afraid? It's just because you're not strong enough, and you're not strong enough. Remember, my daughter, I'm here for you. You just need to be happy. Father and daughter killing each other? Since we already know the mastermind's intention, this will never happen. Yi Qian, who was suddenly confused by the events in her previous life, gradually calmed down. That's right. Dad was right. She didn't have to be afraid of what she already knew, and she didn't have to be hesitant about what she didn't know. She just needed to believe in herself. Dad was here for her. She didn't have to face it alone anymore. Dad was here. She wasn't spoiled. Father and daughter had already acknowledged each other. The things she was afraid of and worried about would never happen again. If so, what did she have to be afraid of? I couldn't help but tremble when I thought of that person's ruthlessness. Now that I have you, I really have nothing to be afraid of. Yi Qian, who gradually calmed down, tightened her lip. She looked at Father Fu with determination and said, "It's okay if you don't go to Shuka village today, but you must go to Caesar Hotel first. I originally wanted to wait for you to calm down before taking out Mother's diary. But now I think there's no need. I can't judge others just because I'm afraid. She had a father who was as strong as a mountain to rely on. What else was there to be afraid of? There was no need to be afraid of things that would never happen again. So what if the mastermind was meticulous? Everything he planned for this life would fall through. That's how it should be." Father Fu appreciated his daughter's strength. She wouldn't lose her way because of fear. Instead, she would quickly get back up and bravely walk down the path again. "Don't worry about the jade pendant. Let her keep it. We can also use it to confuse the enemy. As for the rest, I'll take care of it," Father Fu reminded Yi Qian before boarding the plane. The jade pendant. She knew that it was in Sun Ying's hands, but she did not know where Madame Li had taken her. It was definitely not a good place. Perhaps she could wait until Sister Iwei gave birth to the child, then she would come and trouble Brother Zi. Yi Qian arrived at school around 4:30 p.m. Father Fu had been sitting in his room on the 21st floor of the Caesar Hotel for almost 2 hours. Xia Iwei, who was next door, was still a little worried. She said to her husband, "Is Xiao Ye's father all right? Do you want to knock on the door and see? If something really happens, how are we going to explain it to little Yi? How could a major general get into trouble so easily?" "You're underestimating Yi Qian's father. Honey, you saw it yourself just now. Yi Qian's father is a major general. He's not an ordinary person." Ho Zi emphasized the words, "Major General." He had to enunciate his words very heavily. When Yi Qian called him and told him that she had found her biological father, he was momentarily stunned. She said that she had found her biological father? He and his wife had never heard that. Yi Qian was looking for her biological father. Just as he said, "Congratulations," Yi Qian explained that she had found her biological father by accident. She never thought that she would be able to reunite with her father one day. This explanation was equivalent to an explanation for her family. Chapter 2684. When Ho Zi heard this, she had to admit that she was quite pleased. When Yi Qian said that her father needed to come to the 21st floor of the hotel to collect something and needed the hotel staff to open the door, Ho Zi, who was at home with his wife, immediately drove over personally. Xia Yiwei also came along. Xia Yiwei didn't know that Yi Qian had found her biological father. When the couple arrived at the hotel and saw Yi Qian's father, they were shocked by his military rank. Major General. Yi Qian's father was a major general in the military. Let's wait patiently. I have people watching outside. If there's any movement, we'll know. Honey, Yi Qian's father just introduced him as a Fu. I noticed that this Major General Fu has an extraordinary bearing and has the aura of the capital. The Fu family. Is there a family with the surname Fu in the capital? I've looked carefully, but there isn't a family with the surname Fu. Ho Zi's main point was to know Father Fu's background. No, but if you want to know, you can ask Xiao Yi later. She explained to us how the father and daughter met. She treats us as family. If you ask, she'll probably tell you. Xia Yiwei, who was wearing a loose maternity dress, leaned against the chaise lounge and ate fruits prepared by the hotel. Her beautiful eyes were full of smiles. I really didn't expect that Xiaoye would find her biological father, and that he would be a major general. In this way, Xiaoye would have the support of her family. Old Six, you won't be able to do as you please in the future. Xia Yiwei had always taken pity on Yi Qian. When she saw Father Fu today, she was happy for Yi Qian from the bottom of her heart. Ho Zi thought about it and waved her hand with a smile. Let's not ask. We'll find out sooner or later. She raised her hand to look at her watch. It's almost 5 p.m. Let's invite Yi Qian's father to dinner later. Father Fu declined Ho Zi's invitation with a smile. He took his late wife's diary and boarded the train to Anyang. He arrived at Shuku village the next day. Yi Xinfan was buried in the mountains behind his hometown. Father Fu, who had changed into casual clothes, entered the village early in the morning and left about half an hour later. Father Fu did not disturb the villagers in the village. Before Father Fu returned to the missile base, he went to the military headquarters to meet with Commander-in-Chief Xia, who then led him to the military commission. On this day, Father Fu didn't come out of the military commission until 7 in the evening. This case involves a smuggling case from more than 20 years ago. Back then, it wasn't cleaned up cleanly. Now, there are still several nails nailed in the case. Now, it's far from enough to have evidence from more than 20 years ago. We need new evidence. Therefore, the entire investigation is quite slow. 1 or 2 years would be considered short. In the car, Commander-in-Chief Xia spoke to Father Fu with a gloomy face. Worker Fu, if you come forward, the pressure on the military commission will increase. Their investigation will speed up, but, Worker Fu, you have to be mentally prepared. Even if it speeds up, it won't be much faster. Father Fu, who already had a certain understanding of the situation, was able to keep his composure. When he heard this, he nodded gently and said, "My daughter has waited for more than 10 years. It's not a big deal for me to wait 2 or 3 years. I saw the file just now. It's indeed difficult. I understand. As long as the military commission continues to investigate and treats my late wife's case as a major military matter, I can accept the length of the investigation. Don't worry. I'm the one who reported the death of martyr son Xueqing to the military commission. It's definitely a major military matter. It's getting late. If Worker Fu has nothing else, why don't you have dinner with me?" Now that they were done with the business, it was time to get in touch with their future in-laws. Chapter 2685. Yi Qian knew that Commander-in-Chief Xia had dinner with Father Fu half a month ago. At that time, Father Fu had already returned to the base. At the same time, he received the letter that Yi Qian had sent a long time ago. Although the father and daughter had already acknowledged each other, Father Fu was still very excited when he received his daughter's letter. He immediately replied. Although Commander-in-Chief Xia holds an important position, he is humble and knowledgeable. He did not eat much during the 3 hours of dinner, and we chatted happily the entire time. A son is like his father. From this, I can see the character of my son's captain. He must be humble and courteous, and treat people seriously. It is my son's fortune to have such a captain. Furthermore, my son's captain has been helping my son for a long time. From this, I can see that his character is similar to his father's, and he has Master Xia's general demeanor. From my observations, this child is indeed not bad. My son needs to be humble and learn from others. He must not be rash, and he must not be arrogant because of his outstanding ability. You must know that there is always someone better than you. He must be humble and prudent. He must be generous and not be calculative. Only then will he be able to go further. I have fully understood the matter regarding your mother. Apart from the hatred in my heart, I also know that I must be cautious at all times. Everything needs to be planned step by step, and I must not act rashly. The military commission already knows of my relationship with my son. The military commission has already promised me that they will do their best to resolve this matter. However, after I checked the case files, I was greatly shocked. Although we do not know who the mastermind is, the list of people listed by the military commission is frightening. The old case of more than 20 years ago caused a sensation at the time. Fortunately, our country has been in the midst of reform and opening up for more than 20 years. Military matters are classified, and no news media dares to report them. There is also no such thing as the Internet. Although the scope of this case is wide, it was ultimately dealt with in secret. The case of more than 20 years ago was not completely resolved. There are still some loose ends. Now that it has become a trend, I understand the concerns of the military. In the face of personal affairs and national conditions, my son, I have let your mother and you down. Even now, I still choose the national conditions. Father doesn't ask for your forgiveness, but for your understanding. Yi Qian sat alone in the library, carefully reading Father Fu's reply letter. In the letter, he mentioned that he had received her first letter and was very happy. He hoped that they would be able to write to each other often in the future. Below, she mentioned what Father Fu had done after returning to the capital and who he had met. He watched as Father Fu and Commander-in-Chief Xia had dinner together. Although there was a 12-year age gap between them, it did not affect their conversation at all. From ancient times to the present, they quoted from classics and interspersed a few elegant jokes. 3 hours of dinner had passed without them noticing. When Yi Qian saw this, he vaguely understood Commander-in-Chief Xia's intentions. When he saw a string of words such as, "My son is captain," Yi Qian felt his face burning up. It seemed that not only did Commander-in-Chief Xia not drag Captain Xia down this time, he must have inadvertently said a bunch of good things about Captain Xia. That was why Father Fu had said that his son resembled his father. Although Commander-in-Chief Xia would usually say a few bad things about Captain Xia in front of her, when it came to critical times, there was no father more qualified than Commander-in-Chief Xia. Yi Qian, who was in the front and in the middle, both had smiles in their eyes when they read this. But as he read on, the smiles in his eyes gradually disappeared. Even his expression became a little cold. In the face of personal affairs and the country, as a soldier, Father Fu still chose the country. Then, the people in the file that the military commission had shown Father Fu had a wide range of influence. Otherwise, it would not have written, "I was also shocked." Chapter 2686. There was no need for forgiveness. The military commission had asked her to come to the capital for a talk during the new year. At that time, she had already realized that her mother's death was not a small matter. When Yi Qian wrote back, he clearly expressed his thoughts. At the same time, he told Father Fu that time was not a problem. As long as we find out who the real mastermind is and let the mastermind receive the punishment he deserves, that would be enough for her. Su Wen, who was sitting across from He Jing, saw that Yi Qian's face was cold as he read the letter. She couldn't help but gently tug on He Jing's sleeve. When He Jing lifted her head from the book, Su Wen pouted and motioned for He Jing to look at Yi Qian. "Who doesn't have some worries? Don't look. Hurry up and catch up on your cultural studies. Your physical fitness has improved, but your military theory foundation is still not up to standard. Hurry up." The midterm physical fitness test and cultural studies had ended 10 days ago. Su Wen's physical fitness test had passed by a hair's breadth, but it was still a long way from good. Her cultural studies were also lagging behind. The main thing was that she had to focus on improving her physical fitness in the early stages, which delayed her cultural studies. However, Su Wen had a good foundation. She could improve after cramming for a while. However, Su Wen still had to take care of her cultural studies and improve her physical fitness. It was still quite difficult for her. In Yi Qian's words, she wasn't used to it yet. Once she got used to the high-intensity training and high-pressure studies, she didn't feel that it was too tiring. After He Jing's words, Su Wen calmed down. After Yi Qian finished writing his reply, the coldness on his face dissipated. When it came to personal matters and national conditions, a soldier would always choose the latter. As a soldier herself, she understood her father's helplessness. That kind of deep helplessness. You are a soldier, and I am also a soldier. We both know what a soldier should do. So, Dad, you don't have to blame yourself. I support your choice. When Father Fu received the letter and saw this paragraph, he had already stayed up for 2 consecutive nights. Even though his eyes were bloodshot like spider webs, there was still a deep smile in his eyes. "Mr. Fu, you seem to be in a good mood recently. Is something good about to happen?" The engineers who walked out of the experimental base laughed and asked Father Fu. They had just overcome a difficult problem that had troubled them for nearly 3 months. At this moment, everyone had a smile on their faces, and even the way they talked was much more casual. Father Fu was also very strict in the base. He was a person who made the engineers feel apprehensive. Other than the colleagues who were close to him, who were not very afraid of him, the rest of the engineers and technicians were somewhat afraid of their chief engineer. After hearing what he said, the technicians couldn't help but look at Father Fu. They couldn't tell that he was in a good mood. As usual, he was so serious that even a glance from him would make their hearts beat wildly. Father Fu received the letter from the duty room. After reading the letter while walking, he carefully folded the letter and put it in his pocket. He replied to his colleague, "There is good news, but I can't tell you. Rest early and have a good sleep. When the technology is synthesized, we will have to test it." "Is there a need to hide good news?" "Ha ha, good. You should rest early too. We have been cooped up in the lab for a month. I need to run a few laps outside to loosen up my muscles." The senior colonel stretched his waist and swung his arms. There was an indescribable tiredness on his face. After being in the lab for a month, everyone in the lab was extremely nervous. Because there was a very small deviation in the last parameter, everyone stayed up for 48 hours. Today, all the parameters were passed. After not seeing daylight for a month, they could finally come out and bask in the sun and feel the dry wind of the great northwest. Chapter 2687. Father Fu, who had been in the laboratory for an entire month, sighed softly when he saw the date on the letter. His daughter had sent the letter in the middle of May. It was already the end of June when he received it. The end of June. The college entrance examination for this century was just a few days away. It was the time when success or failure would be determined after decades of hard work. During this month, Yi Qian had been waiting for Father Fu's letter while intensifying her training. She still remembered that Xia Jinyuan had told her that after the summer vacation, she had to immediately gather all the Special Forces soldiers who were going overseas for competitions to begin training. As graduation season approached, it was common to see fourth-year students on campus wrapping bags for 1 or 2 students and sending them to the train station together. Yi Qian and the others often saw the fourth-year students taking pictures on campus. At the same time, they silently took off their armbands and put on new armbands. When they put on their new armbands, it was time to say goodbye to their alma mater. "We're already in our 2nd year. Next will be our 3rd year, then our 4th year, and then we'll go our separate ways. How can time pass so quickly?" Su Wen looked at the departing backs of the 4th-year students, her eyes a little red. Happiness and separation were the 2 emotions that drove their emotions the most. Seeing the separation, even Yi Qian's heart was filled with sorrow. It's much faster than the 3rd year of high school. It felt like the 3rd year of high school was very difficult, but the 4th year of university. Why does it feel so fast? Look, we were still new students last year, but after the college entrance examination today, we're already 2nd-year students. He Jing also sighed softly, especially when the 3 of them walked past a few 4th-year students who were hugging each other and crying softly. The 3 of them were already in low spirit. "What are you crying for? We're men. Men bleed, not tears. Don't cry, don't cry. Don't you see the 3 beautiful students looking at us?" A 4th-year senior who had been at the school for 4 years rudely wiped away the tears at the corners of his eyes. At the same time, he did not forget to grin at Yi Qian and the others. On the other side, a neatly dressed cadet from the barracks walked over in an orderly manner, 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. They walked over the asphalt road that the fourth-year cadets had to walk every day, but they might not walk it again in the future. When they walked to the front of a few fourth-year students who were hugging each other and standing apart, the leader of the students shouted, "Attention!" Everyone in the camp immediately stood at attention. "Turn right!" Whoosh, they turned to the right in an orderly manner, and the team was in a straight line. Yi Qian suddenly realized something and immediately said to the two people beside him, "Attention! Turn right!" The three of them moved quickly and turned to the right, facing the group of fourth-year students who were running in different directions. "Salute!" The leader of the cadets shouted in an imposing manner. Following that, all the cadets in the battalion, including Yi Qian and the other two who had obeyed the command, saluted the fourth-year cadets. "Goodbye, fourth-year students. Goodbye, fourth-year senior brother. We've seen you standing motionless under the scorching sun, training in military posture. The instructor told us very seriously that you are the ranking schools we study. We've seen you crawl and roll in the mud and persevere in training. The instructor told us very seriously that this is the tempering of willpower. You are our role models. We've seen you talk in the middle of the night, we've seen you fight valiantly on the battlefield, we've seen you laugh and talk, we've seen you go through ups and downs. Now that we're parting, the mountains are high and the water is far away, you can roam freely. Perhaps we'll never meet again." Chapter 2688. We'll never forget the shock you brought to our junior brothers and sisters. We'll always remember your heroic and brave figures. Seeing this, the seniors who were about to leave the military academy held back their tears. They saluted the juniors who saluted them and the three juniors who were about to become sophomores. After the ceremony, the third-year cadets once again strode out in an orderly manner. Meanwhile, the fourth-year cadets carried their luggage and were escorted out of the military academy by their comrades who had chased after them to send them off. The National College entrance examination was coming, and so was the graduation season. Yi Qian couldn't forget this scene even after a week, because it would become a scene she had to experience in the future. Father Fu's reply came soon. Yi Qian knew that Father Fu had been in the laboratory for a whole month. Next was the final stage of the test. Once it was successful, China's maritime air defense missile would have a new general. At the same time, Father Fu mentioned that one letter a month was considered frequent, and one letter a few months was considered normal. Later, Yi Qian didn't receive any reply from Father Fu throughout the whole semester of her freshman year. At this time, Yi Qian was packing her luggage and preparing to go to Zhongchuan to complete the assembly. At the same time, a batch of missiles for ship platforms in the Northwest Missile Base were secretly sent to China's maritime forces in the southernmost part of the country for testing on the sea. Although the freshman year had ended, the vacation for commanders had always been strict. After the exam, all the freshmen were sent to the army for 20 days of training before the results were out. There were only 4 weeks of vacation, but 20 days of training had been taken up. When many students received the notice, they almost cried when they went back to their dormitories to pack their luggage. Hurry up, hurry up. When the bus leaves, do you still want to walk to the army on your own? Take a quilt and a cup with you. When you get there, there's only a hard bed for you. There's nothing else. Take inventory of all the daily necessities. Bring your own towels. On the day of the exam, the dormitory of the freshmen was bustling with noise and excitement. After a year of military academy life, these scholars who used to be gentle and refined had swept away the weak and gentle demeanor they had before they started studying. Every single one of them had become extremely masculine. Even Song Jiqiu, who looked gentle, was tanned into a manly man. Her skin was tanned all over, except for the part where she wore underwear, and the rest of her skin was tanned. Therefore, every time the white-skinned boys took a shower, they would rather wear underwear than be seen naked by their comrades. It was too embarrassing. The freshmen were busy, and so were the sophomores and juniors. Except for the seniors who stayed in graduate school to study to get a doctorate degree, the rest of them had gone to work. Yi Jian had already packed her backpack neatly and slung it over her shoulder. She then put the slightly bulky backpack on her shoulders and said to her roommates who were still packing their backpacks, "Guys, I'll make a move first. I won't be accompanying you to the training." "To you!" Yi Qian saluted his two roommates and comrades in arms, then opened the door and strode out. "That's right. I'm training separately from you. So I'll see you at school." Su-won, who was slow to react, didn't even ask for the reason. Seeing Yi Qian open the door and leave, she hurriedly chased after him. "Why didn't you train with us? Where are you training?" "I don't know where to go either. Go back and pack your luggage. There's not much time left." Yi Qian didn't look back as he walked down the stairs. "Where should I train?" "Go train where Captain Xia is." Chapter 2689. Yi Qian did not train with the freshmen. Other than the instructors, only Su-won and He Jing knew about this. The two of them knew, but they kept it a secret. When some of the students in the class saw that Yi Qian did not say anything, He Jing smiled and replied that he was in another car. After that, no one asked any further questions. By the time all the students arrived at the base, Yi Qian had just gotten off the plane. The training took place deep in the jungles of Tibet. Other than helicopters, there were no other means of transportation. The comrades of the Snowfield Brigade and the Storm Tri-Amphibious Assault Team had been waiting for Yi Qian for a long time. Everyone was still calculating the date of Yi Qian's exam, the date of his exam, and the estimated time he would arrive. On this day, the T6 combatant ran over to look for the brigade leader. K7 pointed to the sky and said calmly, "He left 2 hours ago." "He left? Fuck. Why didn't anyone tell me?" The T6 combatant was dumbfounded. He had gotten up and ran over here without even taking a bath in his morning pee. But in the end, the person he had arranged to meet had actually left. At 4:30 in the morning, the two special forces teams that had camped out in some forest for the night started a new day of training. When the T6 combatant, who had arranged to meet up with Yi Qian, saw that he had been stood up, he pulled a long face. "I'll definitely settle the score with him when I get back. We made an appointment last night, but he actually went back on his word and didn't even say goodbye when he left." The T6 combatant, who only wanted to find out more about Unyielding from Yi Qian, kicked a small rock covered in moss and sent it flying. He gritted his teeth so hard that his teeth were chattering. K7 maintained an expressionless expression and replied to his comrade in a flat voice, "If it were me, I'd definitely leave you behind too. Why are you getting involved when the two of them are meeting?" The T6 combatant was at a loss for words. There was nothing he could do about it. He felt that K7 was right. Why should he get involved when the two of them were meeting? Even if he wanted to know more about Jiasun well, he would wait for Qing Miao to come over first. Seeing that his comrade had shut up in embarrassment, K7 pointed to the forest and said, "Let's go and see if there's anything to eat." Last night, he set up a small trap. He didn't know if there were any rabbits, pheasants, or other small animals that fell into it. "I want to eat rabbit meat. Just catch a rabbit." T6 wiped the corner of his mouth and left happily with K7. After a few months of continuous training, the two teams of special forces only received supplies once a month. When the helicopters arrived at the designated location, they would drop a pitiful amount of cooked food, as well as medical supplies. The special forces did not think of ways to fill their stomachs and relied on the food dropped by the helicopters. They had to be prepared to starve. According to Q King's special training, they didn't have any supplies for a month and had to rely on themselves. The Major General considered that they had too much time and had a few months of special training. In order not to affect July's competition, he decided to airdrop them once a month. Even so, Q King felt that he had invested too much. In front of them, G3 and Devil, who had gone to the airdrop site to collect their packages, returned. They high-fived each other and went about their own business. The pustules on the mermaid's leg are getting bigger and bigger. Make a cut later and squeeze out all the pus. If you drag this out, you might hurt the mermaid's bones. G3 whispered to Devil Li Jinyan about the wound on the mermaid's leg. After being bitten by a poisonous mosquito, drenched in the rain, and soaked in water for a few hours, the bite area was red and swollen. It had already turned into pus by tonight and had to be squeezed out completely. It was impossible for her to withdraw from the training with such a small injury, and it was even more impossible for her to be moved onto the helicopter and sent to the hospital. Chapter 2690. Every time the helicopter arrived, the airdrop crew and the Special Forces soldiers in training were not allowed to touch each other. After the airdrop, the Special Forces soldiers would only appear after the helicopter left, so it was impossible for them to meet each other. Xia Jinyuan was going to pick up Yi Qian and bring him into the mountains. Otherwise, he would not have met with the airdrop crew. With a thick layer of paint on his face, only his eagle-like eyes could be seen. He boarded the helicopter and went to pick up Yi Qian. The soldiers in charge of the airdrop did not dare to talk to the soldiers, who were no different from savages. They sat on the side obediently and did not even glance at him. This person was too frightening. His entire body was filled with murderous intent. When he used one arm to climb up the lift rope, his gaze swept past his face. It really felt like he was being swept by a sharp blade. He couldn't help but touch his neck to see if there was a bloody wound on his neck from his gaze. There was no blood on his neck, but the murderous intent on his body made the entire cabin seem particularly oppressive. The air became a transparent wall, separating the savage-like soldiers from the clean soldiers. His aura was so strong that he did not dare to speak. The two soldiers in charge of the airdrop maintained the most standard sitting posture, trying to resist the murderous intent on Xia Jinyuan and keep their backs straight. Xia Jinyuan did not know that he was affecting the two soldiers. After he came up, he nodded at them and closed his eyes to rest. It was not convenient for him to speak. His throat was burning and it hurt to speak. Coupled with the smell on his body, he was not in the mood to speak. The helicopter left the forest and flew over Sichuan, a scenic spot that was very famous in the country and even attracted countless foreign tourists. After another hour of ascension, they arrived at the helicopter airport. The helicopter airport was under the management of the Forest Armed Police. Yi Qian would take the helicopter here to meet with his comrade. When Xia Jinyuan arrived at the airport, he grabbed a backpack and jumped off the helicopter. He walked straight to the place where the Forest Armed Police washed up and washed off the smell of sweat on his body. Xia Jinyuan finally felt that his body was fragrant after he rubbed half of the small portable soap. Just now, when he sat in the helicopter, he almost fainted from the smell. The Zhangchuan forest was rainy and sunny. The group of rough men didn't take shelter from the rain. They trained while sweating, so they took a shower in the rain. But he didn't dare to use any soap, for fear of leaving too much smell. Although this was a forest, it was also a paradise for drug traffickers and poachers. They had been in the mountains for a few months and had helped the forest police and public security officers catch 3 waves of criminals. Bathing with soap had become a luxury. Xia Jinyuan went straight to the bathhouse. The political commissar of the Forest Armed Police heard the news and came over with toiletries and Chinese food. He arrived just in time for the armed police to have lunch. Xia Jinyuan, who was taking a shower inside, did not know that the political commissar of the detachment was waiting outside. After changing his clothes and reapplying camouflage paint on his face, he walked out refreshed. The political commissar of the detachment had already waited until the food was cold. "Thank you for your hard work," Quick, let's eat first. The political commissar of the detachment knew that there was a troop training in the depths of the mountains, because they had been responsible for the delivery of supplies. They had sent supplies 4 times, but they had not met anyone once. Now that they finally saw a living person, the political commissar welcomed them warmly. Chapter 2691. Looking at the soldier in front of him, who had disguised himself with oil paint, the political commissar looked at him and finally looked at his armband. He was also an ordinary soldier, not even a front-line combat unit. He was not as scary as the soldier's report just now, saying that even his eyes could kill. At least he did not feel any murderous intent. He was clearly a very ordinary soldier of the land forces who had entered the mountains for training. After taking a shower, Lieutenant Colonel Xia, who did not smell of sweat and felt much more relaxed, had already restrained his murderous intent. He looked at the military rank of the other party, and according to the other party's tone, he knew that it was the political commissar. Without any courtesy, he took the stainless steel 4-compartment plate used by the army and smiled at the political commissar of the Forest Armed Police Detachment. "Sorry to trouble you." He did not use his toiletries, but he ate Chinese food instead. Although the food was cold, this was the first time in months that Lieutenant Colonel Xia had a full meal. What did he usually eat? Raw meat, water, grass roots, wild fruits, non-toxic mushrooms, and other edible and easily found food that could replenish protein and physical strength, regardless of the type, just to fill his stomach and not starve to death. The political commissar laughed. "Don't be so polite, it's what I should do. Your long-term training in batches should be ending soon. It's been several months." He thought that these few months, the soldiers in the same unit would undergo long-term survival training in batches. In ordinary troops, long-term survival training would indeed be carried out in batches to make it easier to manage. Xia Jinyuan knew that he had misunderstood, but he did not explain. Instead, he went along with his words. "There are still 2 batches left. Everything will be over once they're done. It's not easy to enter the mountains. There are all kinds of ferocious beasts in the depths of Zhangchuan Mountains. Even wild wolves will run over. You have to be careful. If there's any situation, you can send a distress signal to us at any time." The political commissar of the Forest Armed Police Detachment did not expect that the troops who entered the mountains for special training were always the same few. Just like the armed police, they also patrolled the mountains in groups and returned about half a month to 20 days later. They did not eat or drink in the mountains for special training for a few months, so they did not think in that direction at all. Xia Jinyuan nodded repeatedly. He was very polite and did not let the political commissar feel any so-called murderous intent. The political commissar said a few more words and then left. Xia Jinyuan took the plate to the canteen and did not ask the armed police to receive him. He stood outside the airport and waited for Yi Qian to come. As for the T6 combatants who had made an appointment with him last night but did not follow him, however, he had already forgotten about it. Xia Jinyuan lowered his training cap and found a shady place to rest. When he woke up, it was already past 4 o'clock in the afternoon. He slept from 12:40 p.m. to 4 p.m., which showed how hard the special training in the past few months had been. Yi Qian rushed over from Xiang City. First he took the plane, then he took the bus. After going around in circles until 11 o'clock in the evening, he finally arrived outside the Forest Armed Police Helicopter Airport. The moment she jumped out of the car to thank the soldier, she felt a burning gaze coming from her left. When Yi Qian looked up, her heart couldn't help but race. She seemed to have guessed who this scorching gaze belonged to. A tall and slender figure walked out of the darkness and walked step by step to where the light was shining. He raised his head and looked over with a sharp gaze and a faint smile. His thin lips moved slightly, but no sound came out. Although it was silent, Yi Qian already knew what he said. "Welcome back to the team, Qing Niao," he said. Chapter 2692. Yi Qian smiled. Under the light, her dark eyes seemed to have locked onto the brightest stars in the sky. Only the figure of the man standing in front of her existed in the dazzling light. She was here again. She could train with him again. They could leave early in the morning and return at night. They could share weal and woe together. They could overcome obstacles together. Xia Jinyuan walked over and saw the girl standing in the light. When her dark and bright eyes saw his figure, they suddenly burst into a dazzling light. In that light there was only his figure. Xia Jinyuan suddenly felt like he was her entire world. It made his heart surge like a raging wave that could drown him. But he was willing to be drowned. Yi Qian also walked over and stood in front of him. With her backpack on her back, she stood at attention and saluted. "Qing Niao is here to report for duty. Please give your orders," Yi Qian said in a low but powerful voice with the guards in front of them and no one else around. "Head to the training ground immediately." Xia Jinyuan returned the salute. Although there was a smile in his eyes, he did not let it show on his face. She knew that he was happy that she was here. There was no need for others to know. Xia Jinyuan lowered his head and looked at her with a gentle gaze. Yi Qian looked up at him with a smile in her eyes. They did not communicate much, but the affection in her eyes was more than 1,000 words. At night, the helicopter took off again and headed towards the depths of the mountain. It was a little long enough for Yi Qian to have a good night's sleep. "If you have anything to say, we can talk during the break tomorrow. Rest well now. I'll call you when we arrive." When they got on the helicopter, Xia Jinyuan leaned over to Yi Qian's ear and said, "We gather at 4:30 in the morning and finish at 7 o'clock in the evening. Little Fox, you have to be mentally prepared. The training this time is a little special. Gather at 4:30 in the morning and finish at 7 o'clock in the evening." Yi Qian, whose ears were burning from his hot breath, turned his head slightly and moved away from Xia Jinyuan. Then he smiled and said, "Last year's training with my brother was the same. We both gathered at 4:30 in the morning and finished at 7 o'clock in the evening. Although the time is the same, the content of our training is different." Colonel Xia, who saw her small movements, curved his thin lips slightly. He quietly closed the distance between them and whispered in her ear again, "It will definitely be different from your previous training. It will be more exciting and challenging. So be it." His thin lips brushed past Yi Jian's small earlobe intentionally. This action was purely intentional. Yi Jian, on the other hand, felt awkward. She secretly reached out and pinched his arm muscles. "Don't try anything funny. Sit properly. If you come to my side, my entire body will be powerless." "How can I sit properly?" "All right." Lieutenant Colonel Xia started to act shamelessly again. Even his words were so shameless, but his tone was especially sincere. Although he was acting shamelessly, it didn't feel obscene at all. Yi Jian felt that she should have pinched him harder just now. If she pinched him too lightly, it wouldn't have been enough to make him shut up. "Is it because of my presence during tomorrow's training? Will you be weak all over and need me to drag you along? This guy. He's really seizing the opportunity to take advantage of me. Let me kiss you. I'll have energy tomorrow. I'll have endless energy." They had only met for a few months, and in 4 hours, they would have to face his brother-in-law at all times. It would be impossible for him to touch Little Fox's hand or steal a kiss. Chapter 2693. Since he hadn't met his brother-in-law yet, it was better to seize the time. Yi Qian glared at him and raised his hand to cover the side of his face that was close to his, rejecting his request with his actions. But who was Lieutenant Colonel Xia? If he wanted to do something, and it was such an important matter, he had to succeed. Even though Yi Qian raised his hand to cover his face, Xia Jinyuan's eyes flashed with a mischievous smile. He suddenly leaned forward and planted a firm kiss on Yi Qian's lip. His movements were swift. Their lips only touched for a brief moment before he immediately pulled away. It was so fast that Yi Qian only felt a slight warmth and softness on his lips before he sat up straight. Lieutenant Colonel Xia, who had gotten rid of his worries, was elated. He smacked his lips in satisfaction. Yi Qian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He wasn't angry at being secretly kissed. They had been apart from each other for about 60 days from May to July. Kissing was indeed a common thing between boyfriends and girlfriends. As for her and Captain Xia, they only kissed a few times throughout the year. I have to seize the time. My brother-in-law is holding the fort. How could he allow me to take advantage of his sister? Moreover, this brother-in-law of mine isn't someone to be trifled with. I was afraid that if I held your hand, I would have to pay the price of a broken rib. Lieutenant Colonel Xia said with a melancholy expression. There was even a hint of sadness in his voice. With the devil watching, what he said wasn't impossible. Yi Qian blinked when he heard this. When he wasn't paying attention, he heavily kissed his handsome face that was covered in oil paint. He wiped his mouth and said, "You kiss me until my mouth is full of oil paint. It's simple. When we descend, I'll wash the oil paint clean and let you kiss me. I promise there won't be any oil paint smell. Captain Xia, you can rest now. Stop dreaming unrealistic dreams. You were the one who said that I'll kiss you until your mouth is full of oil paint. Since that's the case, I must make it up to you with a kiss that doesn't smell like oil paint." Yi Jian remained silent. 12 o'clock in the morning was the best time to fall asleep. She did not answer. Xia Jinyuan, who had been smiling deeply, held her hand gently and stroked it with his slender fingers. "You're so soft-hearted. I only said a little and you're already soft-hearted." He just wanted to kiss her, even if it was just a light kiss. Yi Qian, whose lips were curled up, finally fell asleep on his shoulder. Her eyes were relaxed like a new moon in the sky. Her face was so tranquil that Xia Jinyuan didn't want to fall asleep. He just wanted to look at her. However, they had to sleep. They still had nearly 20 days of unusual training ahead of them, so they had to sleep well. At 4 o'clock in the morning, the helicopter arrived 3 kilometers away from the destination. Xia Jinyuan fastened the rope, crossed his legs, and slid down with his combat glove. The entire rope was pulled into a straight line, and he landed in the blink of an eye. Yi Qian came down next. His movements were just as nimble, and in the blink of an eye, his feet touched the ground. He used the red light of the flashlight to flash 3 times, and the helicopter rose. He then turned around and quickly left their line of sight. "Can you give me your hand now?" There were only the 2 of them around. Colonel Xia took off his combat gloves and extended his hand to Yi Qian with a smile. "We can go back hand in hand. The 3-kilometer journey will take 20 minutes, so we can hold hands for 20 minutes. Even holding hands was a race against time. Yi Qian did not refuse this time. Not only did she not refuse, but when she extended her hand, she suddenly changed her path and wrapped her arm around his neck. Then, she threw herself onto him. Chapter 2694. She pounced on Xia Jinyuan without any preparation. The landing point was another slope. She stepped on it with one foot, then down with the other, then turned sideways and reached out to Yi Qian. As a result, Yi Qian pounced on Xia Jinyuan all of a sudden and almost made him fall back. Fortunately, his lower body was stable enough. He leaned back and took half a step back. At the same time, he forcefully wrapped one arm around the slender waist of his lover, who was passionate when no one was around, and kissed her passionately. Only a kiss of lips and teeth could be considered a real kiss. Those light touches just now could not be considered kisses. Yi Qian was much bolder and more proactive than before. This was definitely a surprise for Xia Jinyuan. He liked Yi Jian's initiative, and he also liked to see that she had the same desire for him. It was the most primitive and natural desire. He wanted to have her, and she wanted to have him too. In the eyes of outsiders, Xia Jinyuan was calm and reserved, even cold. However, whenever he was in front of Yi Qian, he would always be so passionate and reveal a side that no one knew about. He held her waist tightly with one hand and held the back of her head with the other, turning the passive kiss into an active one. The tip of his warm and soft tongue wandered between her lips and teeth, entangling and sucking deeply. Their lips were connected for at least 3 minutes before they separated as Yi Qian panted. Yi Qian rarely took the initiative to kiss him, but every time she kissed him, she could not help herself. Therefore, the more she was like this, the more Xia Jinyuan was pleasantly surprised. When she left, she was panting and her face was red. "Does this kiss count as compensation?" Her voice was soft and carried a shyness that made Xia Jinyuan's heart palpitate. "This kiss should make you have no regrets." Xia Jinyuan's eyes darkened, but it did not extinguish the longing in his heart because of her initiative, nor did it calm his emotions because of a nearly 3-minute kiss. Instead, it aroused a deeper desire. He wanted to hug the girl in front of him, who was always so soft-hearted towards him, tightly hold her in his arms, and kiss her fiercely. "I've never had any regrets, and your initiative makes me want to love you even more." As he spoke in a low voice, his slender fingers gently stroked her chin. His Adam's apple moved slightly, and he slowly leaned down. Under the starry sky, Yi Qian saw a burning light burst out from the depths of his deep, obsidian-like eyes. The light flew in from all directions and finally, it lit up his eyes, which made Yi Qian could see the fire in his eyes. She held her breath for a moment before his lips pressed down on hers. "It's rare for my little fox to take the initiative, and on such a beautiful occasion. How can I let you down? I've never had any regrets towards you. You've always been the one I wanted." Their lips came closer, and after he finished speaking, he kissed her gently again. He had a deep obsession with Yi Qian, and this obsession did not diminish over time. Instead, it grew deeper and deeper, to the point that every time he saw Yi Qian, his obsession deepened. At this moment, in the face of Yi Qian's sudden initiative, Xia Jinyuan could not remain calm. His rationality and self-control were temporarily thrown aside. Not far away in the forest, there were light footsteps and the sound of branches and leaves rustling. From the electronic map, Q King will definitely choose to land in this area. The more we walk, the lower the bushes are. We should meet them soon. Chapter 2695. The T6 combatant's voice was sometimes high and sometimes low. He was a little impatient. Since Devil said that he was coming over to help, he was the first to raise his hand in agreement. Thus, he thought of the T6 combatant, who wanted to ask about Injiasin in front of Yi Qian, Devil, who wanted to meet his sister as soon as possible to talk about their family matters, and Z7 combatant, Han Zheng, who wanted to join in on the fun. The three of them came together to help their comrades. Li Jinyan walked a little fast. In such a deep forest, there was no path at all. He simply raised his hand and swept it across. With one hand, he grabbed a branch and lifted his foot to step down. He steadily took one step after another. He had been separated from Yi Qian for even longer than Xia Jinyuan. They had not seen each other for almost half a year. When Xia Jinyuan returned from a mission during the May Day holiday, he asked about the rescue process. He learned that Yi Qian immediately rushed over to protect his uncle when the mortar exploded. Li Jinyan knew that he did not have to worry about his sister and uncle reuniting. Although he thought so, he still wanted to know how they were getting along. He was a little anxious to see Yi Qian. On the other side, Xia Jinyuan adjusted his breathing and gently kissed Yi Qian's trembling eyelashes. He chuckled softly and said, "I won't do anything to you in the wilderness. It's just that I can't control my emotions." As he spoke, he reached his hand into Yi Jian's clothes and stopped at her waist, which was tied with a belt. He gently touched her delicate skin, and his heart swayed again. Just now, if it weren't for the belt around his waist stopping him, his hands would have already attacked 2 mountains. It was all thanks to the belt, otherwise, he would have continued. Yi Qian's heart was pounding. She did not look at him with her sparkling eyes and only stared at his chest. It was as if a flower was about to bloom from her gaze. "I really shouldn't have kissed you, and I shouldn't have taken the initiative. Every time I take the initiative, you like to touch me." She spoke softly, and her soft and sweet words filled Xia Jinyuan's heart. "Yes, you can't take the initiative. Every time you take the initiative, the one who loses control in the end is me, not you." Xia Jinyuan couldn't help but laugh. "I've really fallen into your hands for the rest of my life. You can make me lose control with just a kiss. If you go any harder, I'll be at your mercy." As he spoke, he had yet to take his hand away from her waist. Occasionally, he would stroke her back and forth gently. It was as if there was a ball of fire in his palm. When he touched Yi Jian's back, the skin on her waist was boiling hot. "Give me another 3 minutes to calm down. Let me calm down a little more." Xia Jinyuan exhaled a long breath that was as hot as fire. He tried his best to suppress the obvious impulses that stained the corners of his eyes and the tips of his brows. Yi Qian's heart was bashful, but at the same time, he was secretly delighted. Naturally, he was delighted because he couldn't control himself for her. Even such a powerful Captain Xia had to be meek in front of her. She didn't move. When he decisively removed his hand from her back, Yi Qian knew that this powerful man didn't need 3 minutes to adjust himself. Sure enough, after a minute, his undulating chest gradually calmed down, and his breathing gradually returned to normal. When the last trace of impulses disappeared from his brows, Xia Jinyuan helped Yi Qian tidy up his training uniform. No wonder even heroes have a weakness for the charms of a beautiful woman. These charms of a beautiful woman are too difficult to overcome. Just now we were reckless during our break. It's beneficial for our physical and mental health. In the next 20 days, we won't have such a good opportunity. Chapter 2696. After straightening Yi Qian's clothes and collar, Xia Jinyuan placed his hands on her shoulders in satisfaction. He raised his eyebrows and smiled. "All right, they won't notice anything amiss." "I definitely won't notice anything amiss, but looking at you, my brother should be able to tell." Yi Qian, who had also calmed down, also straightened his clothes for him. At this moment, the sound of footsteps came from above. She retracted her hands as if she had been electrocuted and said, "Don't tell me they're here to pick us up." "So what if they're here? What's the point of avoiding them?" Colonel Xia raised his eyebrows and deliberately held Yi Qian's hand. "Let's go, my female warrior. It's not convenient to hold hands in the mountains." He didn't avoid it, but Yi Qian thought it was better to avoid it. However, it wouldn't be nice to immediately turn hostile after kissing him, so she found an excuse to avoid holding his hand. Xia Jinyuan wouldn't give her a chance. He held her hand even tighter. "What do you think my brother will do when he sees us? What else can he do? I'm just holding your hand now. I'm afraid you'll fall while walking in the dark, so I'm taking care of you." "What can brother-in-law say?" "Not necessarily. My brother specifically told me not to have too much physical contact with you before we get married." Yi Qian replied with a smile. Although she said she didn't want to hold his hand, she couldn't bear to pull it away when he held her hand tightly. If he saw them, so be it. If Big Brother really said anything, she could just stand up and say that she took the initiative to hold his hand. The footsteps in front of them were getting closer and closer. No one was speaking, so they maintained their silence and walked down the mountain. Similarly, they also heard footsteps coming from below, but the people below didn't say anything. They didn't know if the people below were their comrades or someone else. Even though this area was deep in the mountains and forests and was deserted, those who dared to appear here were not good people. When a red light flashed below them, the people above them quickened their pace. Demon King Li Jinyan took the lead. When a withered tree trunk blocked his path, he took a few strides forward and supported himself with one hand on the trunk. With a simple leap, he appeared in front of Yi Qian before the T6 combatant and Han Zheng. The starlight in the sky was very bright. The hazy light blue starlight shone on the two people in front of them, outlining their silhouettes and allowing others to see their movements clearly. Li Jinyan's eyebrows twitched slightly before he slowly lowered them again. Holding hands was still acceptable. He strode over to Yi Qian. Without waiting for her to speak, Li Jinyan raised his hand and patted Yi Qian's head. His low and cold voice was filled with concern. "You must be tired. Did you rest well?" His action made Xia Jinyuan's eyelids twitch a few times. This action was clearly exclusive to him. Why did the devil like it too? The other party was his brother-in-law, so he had to endure it. Yi Qian was no longer the same as before when she saw the devil. In the past, she was in awe, but now she was close to him. Hearing this, the smile on her face was like a flower covered in dew in the morning, beautiful and moving. "I'm not tired. I slept on the plain, and when I was sent here, I slept for a few hours. I'm in good spirits." "It's good that you're not tired." As they were close enough, Li Jinyan could clearly see the smile on Yi Qian's face. It was soft and comfortable. He lowered his gaze slightly and saw that Xia Jinyuan was still holding his sister's hand tightly with no intention of letting go. The devil coughed lightly and said calmly, "It's a mountain road. Just take care of yourself." Chapter 2697. She hasn't walked on the mountain roads in a long time. It's better to be cautious at night. Xia Jinyuan smiled as he replied. He still didn't let go of her hand and said, "She has to get used to it. She hasn't walked on the mountain roads in a long time. She has to get used to it." The T6 and Z7 were stunned. F*CK. There's a reason to hold hands like this. Li Jinyan frowned. It's not a reason. You have to get used to it from the start. There's no process. How long have we been there? The first part of the sentence was very serious, but the second part of the sentence, "How long has it been?" was just a casual remark. Xia Jinyuan knew that the main point was the last question. The helicopter just left. His brother-in-law wasn't easy to deal with. He had to be vigilant at all times. His little vixen was smart, but she was open and honest with her family. If she were to answer, she would definitely say that it had been about 10 minutes. That's right, she would be so honest that she would even tell the devil the exact time. 10 minutes had passed, but the two of them were still holding hands. What did that mean? It meant that they had done something that shouldn't be known. Xia Jinyuan was sure that as long as his little vixen answered in this way, the devil would definitely think of it. At the same time, Xia Jinyuan gently squeezed Yi Qian's hand, indicating for Yi Qian to answer in accordance with his words. As her palm was gently pinched, Yi Jian, who was smart, immediately realized what was going on. She blushed and lowered her head guiltily. For the time being, she was on the same side as her boyfriend. "I just arrived and was about to leave when I heard your footsteps." Since she had followed her boyfriend's wishes, Yi Qian decided to follow her big brother's wishes. Just as Xia Jinyuan was satisfied with her answer, Yi Qian quickly withdrew her hand. Xia Jinyuan was speechless. He didn't pay attention and didn't hold his girlfriend's hand. Li Jinyan was satisfied. Satisfied, the Demon King had a soft smile on his face. He habitually raised his hand and gently rubbed her head. "You rushed over immediately after the exam. You're quite motivated." It was not because she was motivated, but because her Captain Xia was here. Yi Qian, who felt even more guilty after being praised, looked up and tried his best to soften his guilty tone. You guys have been training for so long. I'm a little anxious too. It's good that you know how to be anxious. Work hard and make up for what you've missed. The corners of Li Jinyan's lips curled into a smile at his sister's courage. He rubbed the top of Yi Jian's head again. This time, she used a little more force. She rubbed Yi Qian's training cap so hard that it tilted a little. When he saw Xia Jinyuan beside him, he couldn't help but squint his eyes. He liked to rub her head too. Why does my brother-in-law like it too? This won't do. My brother-in-law has to change this habit. Demon Kingly, who had a faint smile in his eyes, did not notice what the wolf beside him, who had been peeping at his younger sister, was thinking. He had been separated from Yi Jian for half a year. Seeing that she was no longer as distant and polite as before, his cold eyes were filled with warmth. This was his younger sister, the one who was most closely related to him by blood. Although they couldn't see each other often, her smile told him that no matter how far apart they were, no matter how long it took for them to meet each other, he still treated her as his closest relative in his heart. When he saw that her smile was bright and without a trace of gloominess, Li Jinyan felt even happier. In that case, his sister and uncle got along quite well. Chapter 2698. Just as Li Jinyan saw that Yi Qian's training cap was crooked and was about to raise his hand to fix it, Xia Jinyuan pretended not to notice. He stood in front of his brother-in-law from the side and straightened his girlfriend's cap in a serious manner. Today's training is about to start. We came back a little late, so we have to walk faster. After putting on his girlfriend's cap, Xia Jinyuan turned around and said to Li Jinyan with a smile, "Let's go, Devil King. While we're at it, tell Qing Niao why we're training this time and if there's anything different about the training." He spoke very seriously. Li Jinyan, who was frowning slightly because of his actions, did not think too much about it. The group of 5 quickened their pace and walked deeper into the mountains. When the T6 combatant saw that his captain had entered a serious training state, he temporarily stopped thinking about asking Yi Qian about Jiasen's current situation. He decided to wait until they had a break before asking. On the 3-kilometer journey, Yi Qian started to understand what was so special about this training. You're all going to do it secretly? Why? Isn't this a competition? We should hurry up and train. Why does it feel like none of you are training for the sake of winning? What's this for? Yi Qian was really a little stunned. Questions kept popping up in his head. Big Brother said that this training would focus on sneak attacks. Captain Xia said that this training would involve training that did not allow one's strength to be determined, but was actually very lethal. Then Big Brother said that this training was not for the sake of a competition. The two of them went back and forth. She could understand every word they said, but she could not understand the deeper meaning behind each of their words. The T6 combatant laughed and said, "Qing Miao, we're really not going out to compete to win. If we go out to compete and win, it won't be good for us," Z7 added. Z7 added with a smile, "Let Q King answer your question properly. You'll understand very soon." Seeing that Yi Qian was even more confused, Xia Jinyuan said to the 2 combatants who interrupted, "Shut up and walk properly." The 2 people who were scolded laughed softly. One walked in front while the other walked behind. They really didn't interrupt. With Xia Jinyuan's answer, Yi Qian's questions were finally answered. The Snowfield Brigade is a special force. How can the country's strength be easily known by other countries? Therefore, our strength and existence cannot be known by other countries. This is why we have to carry out sneak attack training, only in the dark, not in the light. Going abroad to fight is not to win, but to learn. Among the Western countries' special forces, the U.S. SEALs led by the United States is one of the best. They will be participating in this competition. At the same time, There is also the 9th German Border Defense Brigade and the Italian Balaclava Commando Team. These 3 teams are all ace special forces in the world. They are all participating in this competition. It is undeniable that there is still a certain gap in strength between us and the world's ace special forces. If we complete the competition with them, there is a chance of winning, but the probability is small. Moreover, this competition is held for the sake of maintaining world peace in the future. The nature of the competition is different. If we win, we gain face, and if we lose, we gain experience. Don't feel too burdened. We should study hard when we should, and be ruthless when we should. After we're done, we should clean up the mess and not be discovered by the other country's special forces. Chapter 2699. Yi Qian understood everything. However, that was not what they said last time. Last time, they were determined to win, so why did they suddenly change their strategy? Did something happen in the middle? So, our goal now is not to win, but to learn? Other than that, she could not think of any other reason. Xia Jinyuan sneered, and did not answer the question first. Instead, he smiled at Li Jinyan and said, "Did you see that? Your good sister is not easy to fool. She can always think of the crux of the matter." Li Jinyan raised his eyebrows, indicating that he already knew about this. Previously, there was only one high-ranking Special Forces team that joined, but for some reason, 2 teams suddenly joined at the last minute. Joining at the last minute is obviously against the rules, and it is not customary. The 9th Brigade and the Balaclava Commando Team are very low-key. Although we do not know why they suddenly came this time, for the sake of caution, we chose to keep a low profile for our first match. Xia Jinyuan smiled faintly, and his slow tone had a careless sharpness. This is the first time our country is participating in this kind of competition, so the leaders took it very seriously. They did not say that we have to fight for first place, but they said that we should at least have a ranking. Don't be too high profile and let people see through us, and don't be too low-key and let people look down on us. Just follow the rules. We think so too. The Snowfield Brigade is a special forces team with a serial number that cannot be found anywhere. They do all the work of stepping on knives. If we are too high profile, we will be targeted, which is not in line with our country's low-key style. But if we are too low-key, who knows how many countries outside want to see us make a fool of ourselves, especially the countries around Asia. There was a short pause in his casual tone. When he spoke again, his voice was tense and suddenly sharp. They want to see us make a fool of ourselves for a long time. The military of a country that is not even as big as a province of our country even went on TV. They almost patted their chest and said that they were 100% confident that they would teach our country a lesson. This country is not friendly to our country, but it is not hostile either. However, there is one thing that is not good about them. The domestic news reports every day about how dirty and chaotic our cities are, and how poor our people are. Other than the coastal cities and Beijing, all the other cities are very, very poor. How poor are they? So poor that even eating an apple was a luxury. While we're studying, we'll put in a bit of effort from time to time. Ranking and winning, or losing, are not important. The most important thing is to study hard and make progress every day. Yi Qian understood. Originally, they were going to fight for their pride. They had to know their limits and not win too high profile, but also not lose to the point that others would look down on them. Their names couldn't be ranked too high, but they couldn't be ranked too low either. They just had to have a certain deterrent effect on the surrounding countries in Asia. Now that the 9th Battalion and the Headgear Commando Team had joined in, the leaders became more cautious. This is the first time our country is participating in the competition. These 2 countries that have always kept a low profile and disdained to participate in the competition suddenly made an impromptu decision to cut the queue and participate. The leaders have no choice but to think carefully and guess what the other party's intentions are. Our country didn't come, and you didn't come either. Our country came, and in the end, a pair came. Whether or not there was a deeper meaning to it was unknown, but there was nothing wrong with handling it carefully. After the celebration, our country has been targeted, so we need to be more cautious, Li Jinyan added, which made Yi Qian understand the reason for the change in strategy. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.